Omaha area forecast presented by Funplex Water Park and Rides from the KETV Newswatch 7 Weather Center on 1620 The Zone.
Turning a bit hotter on Wednesday, expect mostly sunny and muggy conditions throughout the day. Small chance of a stray afternoon shower, though most remain dry. Highs around 90. I'm meteorologist Sean Everson from KETV Newswatch 7.
1620 The Zone. Traffic.
From the Pyramid Roof and Time Saving Traffic Center. The roads are quiet for the most part in the Omaha Metro on this Wednesday morning. There's no wrecks or delays to report. Traffic is smooth sailing. You shouldn't have to worry about being late to your destination. And if anything changes, I'll keep you updated later in the day. Just be sure to buckle up and drive safe out there. I'm Joey Colbert.
This time-saving traffic is brought to you by Saul's Jewelry and Loan.
We are excited to announce the grand opening of Saul's Jewelry and Loan's new downtown location. It's a Saul's shopping experience like you've never seen. Amazing jewelry finds at our famous best-in-town prices. Tools, bikes, guitars. 22nd and Hardy, downtown Omaha, Saul's Jewelry and Loan.
Watching a ball game at Oscar's Pizza and Sports Grill is pretty awesome. Oscar's offers the MLB package, so your team is always on their upgraded audio-video system, and nothing is better than watching the game with a cold frosty one, Oscar's Pizza, or award-winning char-buffed wings. And with daily lunch and dinner specials, it's really a no-brainer. So get ready to watch your favorite team play ball at Oscar's Pizza and Sports Grill, 173rd and West Center Road, and takeout at 162nd and Maple.
The time between Memorial Day and Labor Day is known as the 100 deadliest days. Students are off for the summer, people are taking vacations, and the days are longer. It's a recipe for good times and long-lasting memories. Sadly, it accounts for 37% of Nebraska's traffic fatalities. Someone's waiting for you at a ball game, a party, or a wedding. Don't let a crash keep you away. Focus on driving. Brought to you by the Nebraska chapter of the National Safety Council and the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
I'm Bridget Condon with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. Rams head coach Sean McVay said that quarterback Matthew Stafford and the club came to an agreement on a contract adjustment and that he will report to camp. Browns wide receiver Amari Cooper reported to training camp Tuesday thanks to a restructured contract, according to NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport. The new deal guarantees Cooper his $20 million salary and gives him a raise. More from Rappaport and NFL Network insider Mike Garafolo. 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, who is seeking a new contract, will report to training camp. 49ers general manager John Lynch telling reporters, quote, "We fully intend on Brandon being a Niner." Rappaport and NFL Network insider Tom Pelissero reporting Vikings offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw agreed to a 4-year deal worth a max of $113 million and $77 million guaranteed. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
All right, when it comes to getting life insurance for your family, a lot of excuses can get in the way. But ask yourself this: if something were to happen to me, who would pay the mortgage, the kids' education, and the other bills? Then forget the excuses and check out Ethos Life, the online, easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes. Ethos has rates that you can afford, like a $500,000 policy for a 40-year-old male starting at $1 a day or $30 a month, with a few health questions and no medical exam. Get your free quote right now at checkethos.com. That's checkethos.com. Not available in all states. Rates do vary.
1 in 4 Americans have a disability. I'm one of them. I'm also a working mom who cares deeply about making sure every child with a disability thrives by getting their access needs met. We've got a trusted ally by our side. Easter Seals provides children and families the foundation for lifelong success through early learning programs, skills training, and prep for college and career. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours. Join us at easterseals.com.
Sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously. At Hims, we know it's always better to be ready. And the best way to be ready anytime is to go to hims.com today. Because when you go to hims.com/radio, you'll find doctor-trusted ED treatments for less, with the same active ingredient as Cialis. Available in daily pills or chews, Hims gives you that boost of confidence, knowing you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. To connect with a licensed medical provider, just go to hims.com. No in-person appointments or awkward conversations required. If prescription medication is right for you, it'll be shipped to your door for free. Starting at less than $2 a day, you can get an ED treatment prescribed 100% online, all for a fraction of the price of name brands. Get your confidence back with Hims. Get started with a free 100% online consultation today at hims.com/radio. That's hims.com/radio for your free online visit. hims.com/radio.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Home ownership. At Progressive, we know it's part of the American dream. It's majestic golden eagles and other less majestic birds taunting you through the baseball-sized hole in your new windows. It's soaring guitar solos performed through faulty wiring in your garage, which subsequently erupts into flames. It's also around-the-clock protection when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive, which can help keep the American dream of home ownership alive and kicking. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Sorry, but we actually have a wait list for our Monstera.
Shaw's greenhouse is really bringing in the green.
We can't keep snake plants in stock.
She needs a construction manager to build on her roots and grow.
We could add a whole section for ferns. Here we'd have dahlias, dahlias, and more dahlias.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Meet Cheryl.
Hey.
She's on vacation and lost in the moment. Unfortunately, so is her Chase debit card.
It's gotta be somewhere.
Maybe she lost it at salsa night.
These skirts should have pockets.
Or maybe she lost it at Pilates.
3 and 2 and...
But she's not worried. With the Chase mobile app, she can lock her card till it turns up. Tools that help protect. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
Email any of our shows anytime into the Equitable Bank inbox. At Equitable, we take banking personally. For me, John at 1620thezone.com. The Equitable Bank inbox from 1620 The Zone.
1620 The Zone.
The pitch, a swing and a drive, high and deep to right. Back toward the wall, Perez, it is gone! And Stephen Kwan has put Cleveland on top 1-0. Big right-hander delivers, and Noel skies one high and deep to left. If it's fair, it's way on out of here, and it is indeed a fair ball, mammoth home run off the bat of John Kinsey Noel. Here comes the 1-2 pitch. Swung on, and that's lifted high and deep. Left field. Home run, Jose Ramirez. And the Guardians are in front. 3-2.
Live from 50th and Capitol Avenue in the Big O. This is Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. 1620thezone.com and 1620 The Zone TV. Now here's Gary, Nick, and Jimmy.
Hey guys, great to see you. Hey, you know what today is? Today is it. All the off season. Hope you got your vacations in.
It's Nebraska Day.
Hope you, got some things done, because today it starts to feel a lot like football, because that guy speaks in Indianapolis, along with Deshaun Foster, Kirk Ferentz, Jonathan Smith, James Franklin, and Lincoln Riley. It is Nebraska Day in the middle of the week in Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Days. Matt Rule will speak today. Ben Scott, Isaac Gifford will be there. Ty Robinson. We will have as much sound as possible from Indianapolis. So it's kind of here because a week from today, camp starts. So it seems like a good day to talk a lot of football on this radio show.
Yes. And I don't know about you, but I would like to think that everybody in the station's a big Isaac Gifford fan, right?
If you're not, I would wonder why.
As a leader, and then the last Chasing 3 was released. Just the dude is, maybe it's the hair. I don't know. That's a guy that I wouldn't mess with.
He's a football guy.
Yeah, he is.
Him and his brother are football people.
Very much
They're football guys.
Yeah.
Nebraska has more football guys than they had last year.
Yeah.
Which, what does that equate to? I'll have to ask my good follow on Twitter, Arbitrary Analytics, if that means anything. if technically football guys lead to more football wins.
What does Bill Connolly think about?
But welcome in, everybody. Welcome to a hump day. Get your hump game right, because it's going to get hot. And I don't think you want to be humping when it's hot.
No.
Because you're all sweaty and stuff.
Yeah.
You should never turn it down, though.
It's
Doesn't last as long.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Some people have preferences depending on the temp. I can tell you this. I did check the temp. So on the weekend, it's supposed to warm up. Like early next week, it's supposed to feel like what summer's supposed to feel like in this part of the country.
Might it happen?
It's going to be in the upper 90s.
Chance?
I don't know.
If
It's
you've gone
it's nice and cool right now in the house.
Yeah,
gotta
you've
make it
gone
one more
this-
week.
You've gone this long, man.
Oh, yeah.
There's no turning back
Yeah,
now.
you guys show me your electric bill. I'll show you mine.
I know.
We'll compare.
Yeah, I'm sure.
This is the only one that I would be proud to say I'm smaller. But it is football season, and Matt Rule speaks at 11:30 today. But let's be honest. I know we're waiting and we're excited, and we get to hear football things, and there'll be some things that are probably talked about that have happened since the last time that Matt Rule has met with the media. And I appreciate him. Thank you very much, because he is more accessible for local media, and he is the best PR coach that Nebraska athletics has ever had. What he says today really doesn't mean much. Okay. He might even be to some uninspiring, but let's be honest. We get excited because it means that we're closer to football and we get to talk about Nebraska football. But unless there is a faux pas, like something that just doesn't go right, or a weird question or a weird response, we don't remember the good stuff that is said. Like a opening statement that warms the cockles
Or
and
one
fully
that-
husks you. You don't remember that. So let's don't overthink this. It's nice to have the football coach and football players talking football, but unless they have a major mess up, we're not going to remember this. Hell, we might not remember this once we get to kickoff on August 31st, but it's nice to have football back. Now, I will tell you where you might get the better stuff today from the head football coach.
Okay.
He is scheduled to be on McAfee today.
Oh.
So that's where you might get the better stuff than any podium or table or individual breakout session with the head coach.
Is McAfee actually going to be set up there?
No, but McAfee's in Indianapolis.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. They've tried to have more and more guests. And hey, I watch McAfee. I get home and turn it on. They've tried to have more and more guests come into the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
I don't know. I imagine Rule will be from Lucas Oil, and they might even like tape it. But, McAfee likes Rule. McAfee's a football guy. Rule's a football guy. They like to talk football.
Guys.
So I think Rule is, I'm not sure when he's scheduled to be on, but I think today is like later in the day he is scheduled to be on. Now, on that show, you want to be in the 2-hour window that they're on ESPN.
Yeah.
Like if you get stuck on their YouTube, you're like, I know where I rank.
Why don't they talk more special teams? McAfee's a special teams guy.
actually
Nebraska needs improvement on special teams.
They actually do. I don't know if I don't. Yeah, that would be about as boring could
I know.
be. Hey, we got the head coach of Nebraska on.
Yeah, we're going to talk punting.
Let's talk about your kicker and your punter and your special teams coach.
Will Ramir Johnson return kicks?
But today is the day. So we'll have all that for you. Matt Rule is scheduled to speak at 11:30 today. And there will be some things that probably resonate more locally than nationally. Like how much does he talk about Evan Cooper? How much does he talk about Jameer Mosey? How much does he talk about offseason if there's any injuries that have crept up or any guys that are full go? So that'll be all kind of interesting, but it is media days, and it is day 2 in Indianapolis. It is also where we all get to share our stories of media days. Both you and I have been at media days. It's also, as you saw yesterday, it is the awkwardness of people that are not used to wearing suits.
Yep. Although I got to give credit to the Wisconsin representation. Especially would you call that a pink blazer? It was trying to be red without actually being.
What player was it?
The linebacker. What's his name?
Bonner. Just big guys that aren't big guys that aren't used to wearing suits can look really, really uncomfortable because if they don't go to the right place, you don't have the right fit. And I can tell you as a guy that has a football body, kind of, if you don't get it like tailored, it's an awkward fit. I mean, it's tight across the midsection, like in the shoulders, fat guy in a little
fat
coat.
guy in a little coat, yeah.
So you get to see that. That's all part of media days. There are some coaches that just don't like wearing a suit.
Yeah.
That would be Matt Rule. Matt Rule looks awkward in a suit. He looks very uncomfortable in a suit. Now, I'm sure maybe Gary Michaels in Lincoln hooks him up. They got a good-looking suit on him, but he's a guy that would rather be in coaching clothes.
True.
And
Yes.
when you see coaches at these events that have to be in suits, some are like, man, like Luke Fickell,
Yeah.
Ryan Day, they
Yeah.
have the look. They also have the body. But other people, you know what? That's just not the suit for them. I can appreciate
That's
that
fair.
when COVID hit for basketball, because you're doing games,
Mhm.
you're always dressed up. Now you're like, oh my gosh, I love that quarter zip.
Yeah,
I'll
quarter
wear the
zip.
khakis and the nice shoes, but man, that quarter zip looks pretty good.
It's all shifted to that, actually. It's not only the quarter zip, but it's how the quarter zip actually complement the shoes. Because now you can go with the basketball shoes, other than just the week of coaches versus cancer. Now it's just like,
I mean,
we'll
that's
just wear
basically
them-
what I did.
just wear them all the time. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's better on the feet, too.
So fat guys wearing suits at media days is quite entertaining because they also know it, and they want to get out of their suits so bad.
Yes.
They want to get back into a polo and shorts or T-shirt and shorts.
Yes. And they arrive we saw yesterday with Isaac, Ty, and Ben all arriving with their shorts and polos on. If they had their way, they would go that way.
I saw the picture as they were getting on Air Husker. Would you like to describe
Air Husker
what
one.
Matt Rule was doing?
I don't really know, I guess. I just saw the picture.
Well, can you bring up the picture?
Oh, let me pull up the picture here. Is he pointing? I was just looking at those guys, actually. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. What would you call that?
Well,
it's
zoom in on Matt Rule.
He's pointing. He's got his duffel bag. I don't know. He's just pointing at Ben Scott. Nothing out of the ordinary. His shoe game, maybe? His gray shirt?
Hold on here.
Is there a different picture here? Let's see. No, I just got the picture of them outside Air Husker and then him pointing.
Okay. Yes, he's got the point. So he will do all of that.
Well, yeah, he's got the gray.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, it is a full button gray though too.
Thought I might get a tattoo in the off season. But
An arm tat.
This is we might be actually back around
He
here.
should actually have an arm tat on the forearm of a point. So every time he points, you've got double guns. Why not?
Sure. They remember what I think Connor was the first and only person that's ever asked him about why he does the point.
And he said just to cover his midsection.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So to cover his belly.
Ooh, that.
Good to know.
It was good insight there.
That might have been
a few
that might
LBs.
have been one of the best questions he was asked
I
last
know.
year. But as they had that picture, I could think of, and I saw on Instagram that members of the 2015 Nebraska football team were kind of interested on how the three players and the head coach were traveling.
Oh,
I remember 2015.
They weren't flying commercial.
2015, Mike Riley's first trip to Big Ten Media Days in Chicago, the head coach and the players flew commercial.
I thought I remembered that.
I
Hopefully
drank
a nice airline.
I drank beers in a bar at Midway with Mike Riley before his first season as the head coach at Nebraska, and I was blown away that he just by himself just wandered. He was headed towards the gate. He saw a couple people we were sitting with. There were a couple of Nebraska staff members, and he came over and sat down, and we started drinking beer.
What kind of beer did he drink?
He was
Good
like
beer, I bet.
It was like a light beer.
Okay,
but
he was having a lager.
Yeah, he was. It was good conversation. He just kind of blended in.
Did he pick up the tab?
He actually did.
He did. What a good guy.
He did pick up the tab.
Love when the
good
coaches
man.
pick up.
And we had been sitting there for a bit, so it wasn't like it was like.
Well, one beer at an airport is still gonna. That'll set you back.
I hope you were within the first five rows.
But here's what happened. So in 2015, flying to Chicago, the contingent flew commercial. Coming back, they had to move guys around because of delays. And so Riley flew separate from the players. Like they put the players on different airlines.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and now here's the other thing. And I kind of know why they flew commercial that year, but we get on the plane and we're seated and
there they are.
No, here comes Mike Riley.
Yeah.
Just wandering down the aisle, the head football coach at Nebraska on a commercial flight back to Omaha.
Anybody give him a GBR when he entered the plane?
I think people were stunned that he was on the plane and that he was not sitting in first class.
Did people do
He
this?
was making his way to the back.
He's one of the people.
Was this a Southwest flight?
I think so.
Was he in a B?
I was like, man,
You would think they could at least give him the early A boarding.
Hey, whoever is your director of football ops,
kidding.
I got to be better on that.
I just wonder how many people pulled their phone out and were like, think that's him.
No,
That's
you're
got-
drunk.
that's
That's not.
gotta-
Why would
that's
Mike
gotta be
Riley be
him.
on this plane?
That's got to be him.
So
99.
The plane that Nebraska uses now to do a lot of recruiting throughout the athletic department did not exist back in 2015.
Can't miss it now.
And the story was that Riley, did not fight to get a charter.
Yeah.
He just said, yeah, you know what? We'll fly commercial. And nobody said, no, that's not what we do here.
Right.
So he was like, yeah, we'll just fly commercial. So if you go to Instagram on the same picture that was shared on X,
yeah,
Nate Gary chimes in.
Let's see.
You don't remember any of the good stuff at media days. You only remember the stuff
Right.
that makes you go, what the? And that in 2015 was one of those when Nebraska flew commercial
Yeah.
and the head coach on an 8:37 flight back to Omaha was just wandering in the B group back and probably sat in a middle seat.
Oh, gosh. Well, yeah, because, and you mentioned opening statements. You're not going to remember an opening statement. What's the opening statement that we talk about the most? The one that never happened.
You only
the,
remember
the
bad
lack
things.
of opening statement. And with Scott Frost wearing no-shows.
Matt Rule today could walk up to the podium and said, one of the greatest things we did this offseason, I cured cancer. But then if he's walking off the podium and he falls down the stairs, we're not going to remember that he cured cancer. We're going to remember that he fell off the podium.
It's true. It is true. And I was watching a little bit of it yesterday at home. And it wasn't like it was a group that you were going to get a lot out of anyway. I was curious, and I wasn't surprised with the answer, but I was curious what maybe Ryan did, because remember how he ended the season. Ryan did, maybe it was because of Lou, was a little edgy last year. Okay, a little feisty last year. Man, he seems good. He seems like life is fine for him. But the fact that they talk about the expectations, it's their expectations, not our expectations. That's the standard. So that none of that bothers them. I mean, what are you going to say? Yeah, it's actually really bothering us. We want to shield these guys.
He looked weary. He looked like this is hanging over him. That's my impression I got.
I thought he looked confident and strong. The beard was extremely dark. Probably got a fresh touch up that morning in the hotel.
All I could think is listening to him and Dan Lanning coming tomorrow. The two preseason favorites have two of the worst big game coaches.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not a good combination to have.
Yeah. But I also would take them in just about anybody in the Big Ten if I had to fight alongside a coach. I would take Dan Lanning to Ryan Day. They look like they could go again, too. Luke Fickell was, again, that was really boring. It was just...
You know what? That's what media days have become.
Yeah.
They just... It's just a kickoff to the season to get people excited.
Yeah. And
we need to spice them up.
Someone needs a streak or something.
That's why I am so happy, and timing is right, is that Oregon is joining the league. Because Oregon has a brand.
Mm-hmm.
They are brash. They recruit to the brand. They want to have a big voice. Their performance and their recruiting may back up how brash they are. This is what this league needs, is the Oregon. Now, they may fall completely on their face and we'll all laugh at them. I don't think that's going to happen as long as they have the current head football coach. I am all here for Oregon joining this league and shaking things up.
Yeah.
For God's sake, they had a humongous inflatable duck that they put on the river in Indianapolis.
Uh-huh.
They just won Big Ten Media Days, and they're not even officially in the league.
No, that's August.
I love that Oregon is doing this. This is what this league needs.
That's what they do.
Okay. And they might have a program that can back all of this up. I'm here for it. Now, we're all going to watch because we slow down when we see a car accident. We're like, ooh.
Yeah.
But if that car is just speeding down the road, we're going to be like, oh, damn. But I think it's great. They have a brand. They have a brashness to them.
Yeah.
They want to have a piece of the pie. This year, they may have a chance to get that piece of the pie. Welcome to the Big Ten. I'm glad. We need to shake things up. We need to get away from the Rose Bowl needs to be played at 4:00. The Rose Bowl is our destination. We need to get over that. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about Caitlin Clark. No, let's don't talk about Caitlin Clark. Was she playing against Nebraska on Black Friday last year? No, she wasn't. Did she lose in Lincoln last year? Yes, she did. Okay, fine. Move on. We need to talk about football. Okay? That's why I got a little perturbed. Tony Petitti wanted to talk about the greatness of the Big Ten.
He did.
You know what? Send out a press release. Let's talk some football. Let's shake it up. Thank you, Oregon, for being in the league. Because today will be another day where people are going to be boring.
That's true.
I mean, even Nebraska's 3 guys. We know them well. We know the importance they have. They don't move the needle in Indianapolis worth a damn.
No.
Okay?
No. Isaac Gifford will maybe come across as somewhat intense, but veteran. Ty Robinson has spoke enough, veteran. Ben Scott here and there, but when we've heard him talk, he's a little bit more bashful. So curious maybe how he comes across. I thought what Andy Kennedy said was to some extent accurate of if you have guys that seem comfortable in that situation, it gives you maybe some confidence of how they just are when just their overall presence.
No, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this, Nick. And if they sound great in a media situation, they're going to be good on the field. You know what? There's some guys.
I can give you examples of that.
There's some guys that have sounded great, and we love talking to them. They suck on Saturday. Okay, I'm done with that.
Yeah. No, I do think there's again. This is if you're trying to draw anything away from it. If you can get a good soundbite, you probably feel like you've succeeded in Big Ten Media Days coverage. That is. Now, going back to the Oregon thing, because I feel like a lot of the media that covers the Big Ten, for the most part, with the exception of the new additions of folks from Oregon, Washington, and LA, you're always, because I feel like Scott was this way in his first year, where you try to pick out the one that is going to give you maybe a little bit of the bold predictions, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I think Dan Lanning Dan Lanning comes across as a very confident guy. You're going into uncharted territory, into a new conference. But we also know that Dan Lanning and the entire nation is looking at Oregon as a legitimate top 3 team. And so I think he's going to get a lot of those questions, but I think he's going to get a lot of those questions of your style in the Big Ten compared to the Pac-12. How does that mesh? I'm not saying he's going to get the whole they'll have to adjust to us, not vice versa. But if you're going to get any type of sort of saucy nug from Big Ten Media Days, it comes from Dan Lanning. And it just so happens he leads off tomorrow. So you set the tone tomorrow on the final day of Big Ten Media Days that maybe if there's someone you get something out of, it's going to be Dan Lanning. And then we'll get the typical PJ Fleck. Oh, wow. PJ's fired up. That's really all I expect out of the next 48 hours. But it doesn't mean everything that's being said today doesn't have its place, isn't important, because you're right. What it does here locally for who will be speaking today is it essentially marks we got 1 week. When it's here, it's like, okay, we're good. We got 1 week. And essentially it's here. It's already here.
I don't expect these guys. They're not going to give you any bulletin board stuff. They're a very confident team. They know what they've done in the offseason. They know what their goal is. They have a lot of confidence internally. And they'll probably let that be known. You'll get that general vibe for them. And I think those 3 that are representing Nebraska and the head coach are realistic. There are a lot of people talking about Nebraska, and it's crazy. They were 5-7 last year, but that didn't mean nothing.
Right.
And the tone starts with the head coach. But there'll be like, I think here's the question that I got, if I was there, I got questions. Okay. I still got questions. One of the most pressing questions, what are you going to do with number 15?
How are you going to?
No, what are you going to do with the number 15?
Oh. Well, I think the QB gets it. I would say so.
What happens to the other one?
I feel like this is one of those, we worked that out. Maybe there's some payment. I don't know.
Does anybody else know that there are 2 prominent offensive guys that both have 15?
Not lately, no, because everybody focuses on the QB part of that. So you're like, we'll be fine with it. We'll be fine with Dylan. Dylan can be 15. He's got the brand. The brand is 15 for the quarterback. then we can start having the fun with the Tommy Frazier, the greats who have worn number 15 to play quarterback. I mean, can we start that conversation yet?
Go ahead.
Might get a little clap back there.
But you know who wears the other 15?
Wide receiver.
Malachi
Yeah,
Coleman.
Malachi, yeah.
Yeah, there's two guys that wear 15. Now, what happens because
team players?
We'll get into this a little bit later about single-digit numbers. What happens if a guy whose whole brand is around the 15 happens to be voted as a single-digit guy? Does he say, well, my name is Ethan Piper, and I'd love to wear a single-digit number, but on my body, not going to look good, and there's a little restriction? You say, no, you know what? Let somebody else have it.
Yeah.
But I would like that to be, and that's not a national discussion. That is more local, is the discussion about who would be in line to get a single digit and how many of the guys that had single digit numbers last year are going to keep them.
Yeah.
Because you have two that are in Indianapolis today that are single digit guys from last year.
Well, and probably one of the most notorious, that's not the right word, most popular ones that is not there is Nash at 0. I think that's a brand now. I think that's his. But
isn't that shame on you if you had a single digit last year and you're not able to retain it?
Yeah.
Like the only guy
that's a big
the only guy that I could
factor.
see would be like a Deshaun Singleton who had 8 last year, but has, worked his way back from an injury.
Yep.
But if you're like, if we get to the eve of UTEP and all of a sudden Isaac Gifford is, back to wearing 23 or whatever he wore before he had number 2. And you're like, oh man, that's not good. What is going on with the culture down there?
Well, exactly. Or if people start turning down the single digit part of it, does that become, this isn't a good tradition? Like the guys aren't buying into the tradition anymore, because as much as I'm honored to be a single digit and I know what that means, I prefer, like you mentioned, Gifford 23. You mentioned when Ethan Piper did it. Number 1 is still available now because of Billy Kemp. So would Dylan possibly, again, a true freshman being a single-digit guy?
I think he has worn 1.
Yeah.
Now that would be
quite the story.
So that would be my question to Rule: is what would it take for a true freshman? To become a single digit? That might be better for the players. But he'll definitely be talked about a lot. And I actually think the head coach should pull people aside and just speak some truth about his quarterback that I'll explain a little bit later. All right, welcome in everybody.
What about 7? Do we touch 7? That didn't work out last year with Sims.
Yeah, but you know what? It wasn't the number. It was the person inside of the number.
I mean, that's true, but
7's a good number.
It is.
7 has worked out pretty well.
It's worked out if quarterbacks in the past.
You won a Heisman and you played for a national champion, or you won a national championship and you played for a national championship.
I almost feel like the onus is back on a quarterback that is going to succeed to wear number 7, so we can bring the number back into a successful lane. That's just me.
That'll look odd for Harburg wearing 7 compared to 10 last year. All right, coming up in about 20 minutes, we'll go to Indianapolis because Iowa's speaking today. Well, they are appeasing the Omaha/Council Bluffs media by having Nebraska and Iowa on the same day. Chad Lystico from the Des Moines Register will join us coming up at 7. Ryan Abrahamson, who covers USC, will stop in at 9, and then Brandon Vogel from Counter Read at 9:40. That is the lineup brought to you by the Rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard. Lots of football today. If you want football, this is the place to come because we're going to talk a lot of football and Italian beef. Maybe not necessarily in that order.
I'm cool with that discussion. Love that discussion.
Yes.
You know I make my own?
Really?
I do.
Is it difficult?
It's really not. This is where a crock pot's your friend. I do this to kick off every season of Bears football.
Okay.
I do Italian beef.
That's a nice tradition.
Yes. Been doing it for last 7 years.
I feel like
I get that.
Bear has done more for Italian beef than Portillo's. Like Italian beef is, I'm seeing more Italian beef options here in Omaha, and I think it's a direct correlation with the Bear.
See, I would say it's not, but, and you've been to Chicago many times too, it's when you know,
But
as far as mainstream,
outside of Chicago, you don't see it very often.
You're right.
Like in Chicago, you better do it well.
So you're seeing it. You're seeing it now readily available more in the last year.
I'm seeing it move up on the menus.
You know who has a sneaky good one? Pickleman's.
Really?
This is true. I've had it.
Pickleman's
I would
Italian
not have
beef
thought
is not
that.
bad.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really not bad at all. Because once you mentioned Portillo's, there's a couple other joints in Chicago. Once you've had that, it's kind of like Chicago style pizza if you're a fan. There's going to be versions of it in different places, but until you have Lou's or Gino's, you're going to have that standard.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who even comes close to it, you give mad respect. And Pickleman's does a nice job with their Italian beef. So I would recommend it.
6:30.
If you like Portillo's.
Andrew says, I hope you guys didn't miss talking about the most important Husker news from yesterday. So I'm going to unfortunately squash this. So this was from a Tampa Bay Buccaneer Twitter account. By the way, I talked about Levante David yesterday being shunned as the 99th player. Randy Gregory is a basket case, didn't even show up for camp. Trey Palmer, who shows up every single day, man, what would have been like to have him for more than 1 year?
Right.
But we enjoyed him for 1 year.
We did.
And according to this Twitter account, he is enjoying Sydney Sweeney this summer.
As he should.
Trey Palmer?
Yes.
Okay. For a second, I'm like, Randy Gregory? No.
Anybody that wants to enjoy
Randy
her.
Gregory is done. Randy Gregory is suing the NFL and the Broncos, and he didn't show up for the Bucs. They should cut him immediately. That's for a winter time. But this Twitter account, Sydney Sweeney and Tampa Bay Buccaneers star wide receiver Trey Palmer have been quietly hanging out this summer. I bet he don't wake up pissed off anymore.
No.
But
Tired,
I hate
probably.
to do this because I am following her career.
Yeah.
She is attached to a lot of people.
Yes, Glenn Powell.
Like a lot of people. So either she is very friendly or this is all BS.
I'm going to hope for the former.
But if Trey is hanging out with her, and I don't know, I'm a little bit older. I'm not sure what the phrase hanging out is anymore, what that is code for.
Having a good time.
But if he is,
Really good time.
if he is, man, don't let her ruin your game because, my friend, you are on an upward trajectory.
Oh yeah, this could be like an Ariana Grande, Gio Baker. Remember the Gio Baker, Ariana Grande rumors?
Maybe Trey would come back for a game and it'd be like Andy Roddick when he was dating
Mandy Moore.
Yep.
I mean, we got celebrities on the sidelines. Trey Palmer comes back for a game, and there's Sydney Sweeney. All of a sudden, Gary Sharp would be the sideline reporter for the Husker Sports Network.
So then you could cross
Throwing
off
it back.
having Livy, interacting with Livy, and then Sydney Sweeney.
I mean, yeah.
Maybe that's the curse.
God, who's better, by the way?
I'd let people rub my phone. Iowa JD says, Gary, you absolutely dropped the ball this morning. Urbandale plays a semifinal game today. First shot at state finals in over 20 years. And you can't wear the U hat.
Damn.
Do you have one?
I do.
Crimson and blue?
I do. Well, it is basically the U is stolen from Miami.
Oh, nice. That's kind of cool.
Our colors are just like Kansas.
Yes.
So
now is the Jayhawk the exact same?
A little bit different.
Okay.
So
angrier.
So they've gotten away from this, but when I was in school, the girls' teams were the Jayettes. The boys' teams were the Jayhawks. The girls' teams were the Jayettes. But they were in Fort Dodge playing in the state semifinals today. They beat Muscatine 10-9 the other day.
Ooh,
great game.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Shout out.
What's going on in the circle there?
Shout out Amber Salmon. I went to school with her brother Nick, and their father Orv, the late Orv Salmon, was a longtime college basketball coach, most notably at Drake.
I'm officially pulling for Urbandale, not because of you necessarily, but because I stayed there. So now I feel like
I have to just because of the Jayhawks, although I never referred to our basketball teams as the Jayettes. I don't think that would have gone well.
Yeah, that was back in the day when you had the Lady Huskers.
Yeah. The lady this, the lady that.
Yeah. Well, some people still refer to like the Lady Huskers.
Oh yeah, they'll talk about like, and the Lady Huskers pulled out a big one today.
Yeah, I think we're past that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, but we had the Jayettes. So good luck today. 12:15 they're playing if you want to make it over to Fort Dodge in the 5A semis. They take on Pleasant Valley.
Beautiful.
Who is the number 2 seed. Fort Dodge?
Yeah.
I don't know that Fort Dodge is beautiful at any time of the year.
Could be warm.
There's a pretty decent sized lake just outside of Fort Dodge that a friend of mine had family there. We went. That was a good time. But we were on a lake. It's hard not to have
Fort Dodge couldn't even come up with a better nickname. They're the Fort Dodge Dodgers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is that's kind of just, you're right. It's lazy.
Would have been weird if they're the Giants, though.
The Fort Dodge Giants. That would have been good.
The softball complex,
Maybe the Padres.
It's called the Harlan Rogers Softball Complex. It is pretty impressive.
Okay.
Like they've been hosting the state softball tournament in Iowa forever.
So Fort Dodge just put all their money into their softball complex.
Yeah.
Is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a junior college there as well. I think Iowa Central is still there.
Is that where Iowa Central is? I
so.
wasn't sure where Iowa Central was.
Yeah. Just an interesting town. They were they grew and they joined like the Central Iowa Metro League.
Oh, okay.
And people are like, why do we have to go to Fort Dodge?
Yeah.
Bad enough we have to go to Ottumwa or Mason City.
Hey, don't knock Mason City. Again, I've been there, and it was, now, mind you, didn't spend more than 2 days there, but it was fun.
It's a good stop off when you're driving on 35 up to the cities. Yeah, stop off there. They got the McDonald's. They got the convenience store.
Big
Not
lake.
bad. Yeah.
Huge lake.
Yes, they do. All right, 6:42. You got the lineup brought to you by the Rooferys of John Higgins Weather Guard. Matt Rule speaks at 11:30 today. Throughout the day here on the Zone, we'll have all kinds of sound because it's kind of a headliner day. Lincoln Riley, James Franklin, Kirk Ferentz will be there, and a guy who might not pop this year, but I really like the hire in Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. You can join the conversation on what you think should be discussed today on Nebraska Day in Indianapolis, where they have not been since 2012.
Yes.
To play in December, that is.
Yeah, they're just here last year.
402-951-1620. That is the 42 degree, the Source by Your Mom's House hotline. You can always email us into the Equitable Bank inbox, which is already starting to roll this morning. Gary at 1620thezone.com.
Handley, 1620zone.com.
Also on the J-Tech Construction Zone Twitter feed at Gary Sharp 1620.
At Nick Handley, 1620.
All right, Jimmy's got an update coming up after the top of the hour. More on what we think will happen and some recruiting news for Nebraska as we roll till 10 on Mornings with Sharp and Handley at 1620 The Zone. All right, we'll talk some Iowa football coming up here in about 12 minutes. Our good friend from the Des Moines Register, Chad Lystico, will join us. Iowa, the dark horse of the season. Is Nebraska Iowa's second toughest game?
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's with their schedule. That's one of the reasons. That was the thing when you had mentioned before I even saw it of Phil Steele putting them as the fourth team out of the Big Ten. Like how? Like I feel like that's quite the leap of faith. But then when you look at their schedule and who they have, who they avoid, yeah, I would say. I mean, you look at Ohio State. Yeah, Washington, that's in Iowa City. UCLA, Maryland, Nebraska. Yeah, I would say Nebraska at home is probably Nebraska, Iowa City. That is, I would say it was probably their second toughest one. No disrespect to Washington or Wisconsin.
You don't have to say no disrespect. They only returned 3 people. Their roster's been gutted from a team that played for the national championship.
Or Wisconsin too. No disrespect, but yes. I think I think that's accurate.
Seemed like I don't want to say disrespect. It seems like Wisconsin was kind of an afterthought yesterday.
It was very boring. I appreciate the BTN guys when they get the student athletes on and they're really trying to open them up a little bit. Even with the student athletes too, it was very mundane, and I think they're trying to use a little bit of the chip of the shoulder thing. I mentioned it was Hunter Wohler, by the way, who had the really cool suit coat.
By the way, he's a dude.
Yeah. He doesn't look like a safety either, by the way. But it just not a lot to take away from Wisconsin, which, I mean, if you're a Badger fan, I think that's probably it's similar to Nebraska, where you're not getting much out of it. They know what they need to do and they know what they need to be. It's business-like approach or whatever you want to call it. But there's just, other than them saying, yeah, they feel like maybe people aren't talking about them as much, but they didn't get into, that's, we're using that as motivation. They're just like, we've got to let our play on the field do the talking. Like everything about their presence, I think it didn't surprise me. I think it was very Wisconsin-like, but now you're in the second year of Luke Fickell and maybe you get something different than what you typically would get when Wisconsin would be at any media days. And I think it was very similar. Again, yesterday there was really nothing.
The most exciting thing to me yesterday was Bielema basically openly campaigning with his 18-19 record at Illinois to be the next head coach at Iowa. Find me somebody that is not in the Kirk Ferentz family that loves Iowa as much as Brett Bielema.
Yeah, he does.
Brett Bielema, I think, would scrap everything, and he would drop 2 bills to get to about 175 so he could be the head coach in Iowa City.
How weird would that look? I was telling Connor when
that Tiger Hawk tattoo that he's got.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
That's why.
And it's right there in the leg.
That's why I've never gotten a tattoo. Because I thought, you know what? I'm a bigger guy. What happens one day when I lose weight? What's that tattoo going to look like? I had to think ahead.
It's true.
So that's why I have resisted getting a tattoo. But if, he's got his tattoo that he shows off, what do tattoos look like? Like a tramp stamp. Like when you drop some LBs, does the tramp stamp look different?
Well, yeah, it starts getting a little, especially if you drop a little LBs, it might seem to have a little bit of stretching going on, deflating looking going on. I've found myself now, I'm at that age where when I was growing up into my 20s, tattoos were popular just to get one, just to say you had one. Well, now I'm seeing a lot of those dads and moms at the swimming pool where you can tell they're a mom. You can tell because they've got 3 kids running around and everything, yet they got tattoos. Now, when I was growing up, we didn't see a lot of that.
Tattoos are back. And you know what? There seems to be a lot more talented tattoo artists because I'm seeing a lot of people this summer around this town that have got great artwork. Like I've actually complimented a couple of dudes on their ink because I'm like, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Like a full arm sleeve or, some tattoo that might be around their neck area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, whoever did it, they did a great job and that looks awesome. Oh no, tattoos are back. And it also doesn't matter where you put them. You want to put them on your face? put them on your face.
It's more acceptable.
I just didn't want them on my body because what happens if I drop a bunch of pounds? I don't need, sharp across the back of from shoulder blade to shoulder blade.
In Old English?
Yeah. I don't need that to all of a sudden look like, does that look like Slurp?
That's your name? No, favorite TV brand.
Yeah, because if you put it in a certain area of your body and you go through either weight gain or weight reduction, that all of a sudden it kind of folds.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're not seeing the exact design. Now, the reason I say these aren't what I'm seeing lately, especially this summer, are not fresh ink is because you can also tell the colors faded as well.
Yeah.
They're putting spots that I think if guy and girl could go back to would say, not my best decision.
Yeah, Limp Bizkit really doesn't rule.
Yeah.
No regrets with a Z.
That's why I always advocate.
And an A.
The popular, you don't have a wedding ring, but you get the tattoo of the wedding ring on your wedding finger.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like to put their bride's name across their knuckles. I elected not to.
I think that's wise for everyone.
I think that's one of the better decisions I made in my life.
Statistics will tell you that's
I
good.
made a lot of bad decisions. That was one of the better decisions that I made. Yes. But all seriousness about Bielema, who is 18-19 at Illinois, and this is a big year. And I know he loves Iowa, and he'd love to be the head coach there. But I think he would be, at minimum, third in line and probably further down behind LeVar Woods or Chris Kleiman, Waterloo, Iowa guy.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Waterloo, Iowa. Illinois, I think, is in trouble in the new college landscape. I think Illinois football is in trouble. And they're not alone in this conference. I think there are probably, if you find yourself 14-18 in this conference, I think you're in trouble moving forward. I think college football is going to pass you by.
Yeah. There are teams that, when we knew the divisions were going away, there were going to be teams in this landscape that you're looking at, okay, how many, at the time when there were divisions going on, what type of support, what type of resources did they have going into their football program? From NIL, their ability to recruit, their ability to sell, all that, fill stadiums, all those things matter. Then it comes to a revenue sharing standpoint too. Are you able to sustain all of that while putting out a competitive football program? I think Illinois is one of those that you look at, that's going to be a challenge. Purdue, another one of those teams that you look at, another one of those programs that you look at and say, that's going to be a challenge. Northwestern, from a competitive standpoint, what David Braun did last year, and David Braun, by the way, had to be a much more pleasant experience in Indianapolis yesterday than
a good football guy.
Another good football guy. But again, for programs that are going to be either restrictions on who they can bring in on their roster to bolster the roster, or the type of competitive balance when it comes to what the top half are doing from the financial standpoint compared to what you're doing when it comes to the ability with revenue share, but also how your NIL, how your collective is, and how you're able to maintain that. I would put Illinois in one of those programs. Not saying that I listen to Fight in Illini overreaction every day, but that you've seen the stadiums, you've seen their home games. There's not a lot of support there.
Yeah, he's smart. He's campaigning because he knows the landscape at Illinois. He knows what they're faced against. And if it doesn't work out, he probably is. That's probably it for him as a head coach. So I know why he's campaigning for Iowa. But LeVar Woods needs to be the next head football coach at Iowa. To finish up the hour, because we will talk Iowa football here in a little bit, Kent tweets in, I know a girl who got a lizard tattoo around her belly button, and then she got pregnant.
Oh. And then
big lizard.
So the lizard got bigger, and then it shrunk, and it's probably got a little bit more things going on.
That's I've noticed that this summer. So at my pool, it's a community pool. It's not like my pool. And I invite.
That's not good of you.
I invite all the co-eds.
Gary and friends.
I mean, because there's nothing
20-year-old young ladies.
There's nothing creepy about that.
It's getting to know the youth.
The tattoo around the belly button is pretty popular.
Really?
Like I saw someone that has like a sun. It was actually really good.
I've seen the sun.
Yeah.
I've seen the more
I thought you meant a
small
sun.
sun around the belly button. I've noticed.
Dude, mine looked like Jupiter if I did that.
Can you imagine what Bielema's would look like? I've seen
Welcome
the side.
to Mars.
Oh my God, it's the Death Star.
I think in the last 10 years, the side tattoo has been very
Oh
popular
yeah,
too.
and versus like underneath.
Yes.
I guess in this case I would say the rib cage.
Rib cage, yeah.
Yes.
Be very subtle.
Yeah.
You'll have a verse or maybe a saying.
I thought you meant verse.
I'm pro ink, and we've got some very good ink that is in the area. But
We're good Ink Town?
I don't have time for it.
Yeah, would you gonna show up with the sleeve one day?
Ain't a chance.
Oh, come on. Get something really cool.
There's a better chance I will convert. We'll talk
10-year
some Iowa
anniversary of the
football
Cubs.
coming up next on 1620 The Zone. All right, day 2 of Media Days in Indianapolis, which, of course, we all thought when Nebraska joined that one day we'd have UCLA and USC on the same day. Well, we get a familiar friend or foe. Iowa is there, and from the Des Moines Register, also in the Iowa City Press-Citizen. Our good friend does a fantastic job of covering the Hawkeyes. Chad Lysticko joins us now from Indianapolis. Good morning, Chad.
Good morning.
So this is Kirk's 26th year. What year is this for you for covering media days? And what is your favorite story of this excitement of media days?
It all runs together. Let's see. I think I've got back on the beat going into the 2015 season, so that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah.
That was a surprise season for the Hawkeyes.
Mm-hmm.
They go 12-0. Just almost inexplicably, they're the fake ID of college football. Just kind of seeing those special seasons every once in a while come together for Iowa. That's pretty memorable. And you think back to where it started at, each year at Big Ten Media Days. You just never know what's going to happen. I feel like I know Nebraska today, and I was just talking to a colleague. I was like, I'm going to probably write something about Nebraska again. And like, is this the year? It's the same. Sometimes it's the same stuff over and over.
Yes. We'll leave that on the side. But but with Iowa, Chad, it's potential to be a top 5 defense. Cade McNamara healthy, new offensive coordinator, fairly manageable schedule. When you look at the roster and the vibe you get from covering Iowa, and then you hear the Phil Steeles and others say Iowa either is a playoff team or is right on the cusp, a bubble team of being in the playoff in the first year of the 12-team playoff, your reaction is what?
Yeah, I do think that's realistic. I don't think it's like probable or anything. I mean, I looked at some of the betting odds the other day, and they're like between plus 600 and plus 700 to make the playoffs. So you figure like a 7-1 shot, but it's probably in my mind maybe a little bit better than that, just because I think people just think of Iowa and off the top and think, oh, it's just they're terrible offense, overmatched. And maybe they are. We'll see. They did get blown out by the 3 big teams they faced last year, but they just had absolutely no quarterback. And so you mentioned Cade McNamara. He's kind of the beacon of hope here. Says he's 100%. Says he's as good as he's felt since he's been at Iowa. And, shedding Brian Ferentz for Tim Lester, we have to think that that's going to be an upgrade. Maybe not right away, but overall should be a little bit better on offense this year, you would think. So, you put that together, and the only team they face in the top 6, the predicted top 6, I should say, is Ohio State. They don't have Oregon. They don't have USC. They don't have Michigan. They don't have Penn State. They don't have themselves, obviously. So, you said it, like you said, it's a manageable schedule. If they can go 11-1, you have to think that they've got a really good shot of being in that top 12.
Chad, part of your coverage, and you mentioned Tim Lester ushering in a new offensive coordinator after what was just, record-breaking bad offense in previous years. And you were one of the people week in and week out that was asking about whether it was Brian Ferentz at the podium or Kirk Ferentz at the podium about progress, about just the overall job status. And I know it's been just a handful of months since Tim Lester has been there, but what are the early impressions of him, his impact, especially with Cade McNamara, and just not trying to make this offense a record-setting offense, but just an average offense that could go a long way for Iowa?
Yeah, I think so far, I mean, as you might expect, positive reviews for Tim Lester. I think personally, he's a little bit different than Brian, and Brian was very stubborn, very very well liked within the locker room, but also just very resistant to change. Whereas we're hearing Tim Lester's hey Cade, what do you want to do with this? What's best for you? And that's kind of where this has sort of gone so far. He's bringing the Shanahan system from the NFL. He's with the Packers last year. So this is basically the the Kyle Shanahan offense. I probably think Kyle Shanahan these days. But so that's encouraging. It sounds like they were popping some big runs in spring practice. They've got a very veteran offensive line now. They've had a lot of starts, a lot of bad starts, but it is very veteran. So is this the year it comes together? Got to feel really good about the running back position. Got to feel really good about tight end position with Luke Lachey. We'll talk to him today at Big Ten Media Days. Should be one of the best tight ends in the country. Came back, and we'll see. I mean, you have to see it to believe it with the Iowa offense, but I think the reviews so far, just in terms of the fit, he understands what he needs to do. He's not coming in. He's not like a Chip Kelly where he's kind of got his own idea of how to do things. He's kind of fitting into what Kirk wants to do, and playing the field position game, but building around the run and building around Cade McNamara. Now their weakness is going to be wide receiver. That's going to be a big question mark going into the year, but I like where they're at all the other positions right now on offense. That should be a positive.
A healthy Cade McNamara, the expectation should be what in this new offense, Chad?
I don't know, because he was a 64% passer in the playoff year at Michigan when he led the team, to that season. And obviously J.J. McCarthy had some snaps that year as well, but Cade was the starter and played the majority. And he was very solid, but it's the same conversation, with the Minnesota Vikings right now. And J.J. McCarthy is like, well, how good is he? We don't 100% know yet until we see. He was 51% last year in his 4 games for Iowa until he got hurt. Now, he was dealing with a quad tear. And so we really just haven't seen him. I feel more bullish, I think, than maybe I should be on him. He just kind of resonates. You kind of feel him. You just feel a different vibe around him. He just seems like a Big Ten quarterback when you hear from him, when you see him. I mean, his throws, when you've seen him in just little warm-ups, they just look different. That's the thing. He's just got to be accurate in the Tim Lester offense. There's going to be a lot of short passes, trying to get yards after catch. And that's really what they need. They don't need him to be gunning it downfield. So I'm pretty optimistic about it, but it's just got to see it, though, to believe it.
I was interested a little bit into what they did behind him, too, because as he gets injured, you're playing a guy like Deacon Hill, and Deacon Hill, who I know at one point was threatened to go back to the offensive line. I know Kirk Ferentz was joking about that, and quite frankly, he could, body-wise. But you get Brendan Sullivan, who had his ups and downs, but at least had some starts for Northwestern in the Big Ten. So what they've done behind Cade McNamara, in my opinion, that's not a bad insurance policy.
Well, we found out last year, maybe the most important position on the team is backup quarterback, because when you don't have one, it can look really bad. And yes, sure, Iowa did win 10 games last year, but everyone knows who watched it. It was just an ugly 10. You can't sustain life that way. And so this is if you think about it, it's a major upgrade at backup quarterback. I mean, he started 8 games in the Big Ten. He's, high 60s percentage passer. That's what I was looking for. He's got some athleticism. That's the word that has really come out so far about him, athletic. So it's also, you just feel a little bit better if Cade McNamara, God forbid, gets hurt in second quarter against Iowa State, that you might not, the ship might not sink when he comes in, and that's kind of what you need with this Iowa team. And I wrote this before, and I don't know how I feel about it yet. I have to see it, but it could be Iowa's healthiest 1-2 quarterback punch since Jake Rudock and CJ Beathard way back in 2014. They've really not had like a ready to go backup for quite some time since Beathard. So, will that develop into a quarterback controversy at some point? We'll see, like that did, but it seems healthier at that position right now than they've been in a really long time.
Chad, let's shift over to defense, where Iowa will look like an Iowa defense, but in particular, Phil Parker. And from afar, we've seen up close. So 12 years as a coordinator, Iowa's defense has been in the top 20 scoring defense 10 times. They've been in the top 10 5 times, and 4 of those top 10 finishes have come in the last 5 years. I mean, that's jaw-dropping. They are really, really good defensively. They bring back essentially everyone except for Cooper, who unfortunately pulled his hamstring in the Eagles camp, is going to be out for 3 weeks. But they brought everybody back. Jay Higgins is going to be one of the better players in college football. Let's just focus on Phil Parker. Chad, you've been covering him for a while now. what makes a Phil Parker defense so good, because it's like they just roll through player after player, and the defense at Iowa never misses a beat.
Yeah, and it's the total opposite of the offense because they've just got so much continuity. They groom these guys behind the guys. It's just exactly how you want a program to look. You think about like an Alabama or Georgia, on every side of the ball. You just have guys just ready to go the very next year. You lose somebody, well, hey, here's Sebastian Castro, who nobody knew about, and all of a sudden he looks like Bob Sanders last year, in the secondary, and guys like Lucas Van Ness. I mean, just guys, they just keep coming in waves every year. And that's just development. I mean, that's just guys waiting their turn, and that's how you want it to be in college football. So that's really has been his secret, is he's just got guys ready to go. Because on defense, you can't hide. If you got 1 or 2 weak links, it's hard to hide that, and people can expose that. And that's kind of where I feel like he's been maybe quietly underappreciated even more. There's not many weak positions anymore. I mean, I think back to even the 2015 season. There were some weak spots in that defense, and they kind of got exposed, against Stanford in that game, with Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Hate to bring up bad memories for Hawk fans there, but they haven't had those years lately where they've got glaring weak spots at certain positions. Now this year, I do think pass rush could be a concern. I'm not, they lose Joe Evans. I don't really know if they have anyone ready to go there. We'll see. He usually does. They also could be thin at defensive tackle. So defensive line still a question. And I know I'm rambling, but the other thing I want to just caution people about is the defense. Offensive teams just were not challenging Iowa much last year. They knew they didn't have to do much against them. So maybe the defense got a little bit.
Great point.
Looked a little bit better than it really was. Maybe. We just don't know. So, when teams are pushing it a little bit more, like Tennessee did in the bowl game, we'll see.
And the part about retaining a lot of guys on the defensive side, you get some of these early players, and it, Chad, now day and age, people want to play now, whether it's defense or offense, and if they don't, they're going to hit the transfer portal. Between Phil Parker, what Gary brought up too, a big part of that, but also that reputation of each wave of defense, and from the your front seven to your secondary, there is a track record of guys going to the NFL.
Yeah.
How big is that, as well as retaining those freshmen and sophomores that maybe aren't getting as much playing time early on, but being able to wait their turn, because that's rare anymore in college football.
Yeah, for sure. And I think about one guy that I think about when you talk about that is a guy named Cohen Entringer, who's he made the big chase down, punt return thing in the Big Ten championship game last year. You've probably seen the video. That's a guy that, hey, this was going to be his year at safety. And then Quinn Schulte and Sebastian Castro both come back for their 6 years. And now he's waiting again, but he's still here. That's a great example of something like that. Now he is hurt, but still, it would have been his time. And, they've done a really good job of just staying patient. You point to, heck, a guy like Riley Moss who's now challenging for a starting spot with the Denver Broncos. Maybe he and Cooper DeJean will be starting white cornerbacks this year. We'll see. Break that Jason Sehorn streak or whatever. It's guys like that. Moss was kind of beaten up a little bit as a true freshman, but he became a third-round draft pick. Guys like that. Josh Jackson, another great example. He was in the Thorpe conversation back in 2017, and he was a two-star. That played offense and defense. Great points. And I do want to mention Seth Wallace too. He's been a big part of this defense for a long time. He was named assistant head coach this year, up to the $1 million mark for a linebackers coach, assistant defensive coordinator. So it's really been a Parker Wallace led defense, and Kelvin Bell is also outstanding on that defensive line.
Yep. Chad, as always, we appreciate the time and the conversation. Enjoy Indianapolis, and we'll talk once we get into the season. But thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Had fun. Thanks, guys.
That's Chad Lystico from the Des Moines Register. Something to keep in mind. So, 26th year for Kirk. High expectations. Manageable schedule. one of the games on that schedule is right before they play Nebraska. Kirk will be on one sideline. Brian will be on the other.
Yeah, Maryland.
As a analyst under Mike Loxley at Maryland.
Yep.
That'll be kind of interesting. They have the pieces to have a typical Iowa season where they're going to win 8-9 games. But when they play, like in Ohio State, what does that score look like? Because the last 5 games against ranked teams, it has been lopsided. Yeah, they've won 9 games. Iowa is essentially in this current run where, hey, Nebraska would take.
Oh, hell yeah.
But they are in Bo Pelini range.
Yep, exactly.
Where good, but not good enough. And there's the great, I think, with a 12-game schedule, great teams win 10, good teams start at 9.
Yep.
So there's the dynamic of it's nice to win 8-9 when you roll out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
Can you find a way to win that 10th? This year, can you find a way to win that 11th? And are you only going to beat the teams that live in your neighborhood and never beat the teams that live in the gated community?
Yeah, it's a great comparison because when we would see Nebraska show up against the Wisconsins of the world, or the game that mattered to take you from a 9 or 10 win season to, which that sounds funny now, but to a season of major significance, meaning you're at least finishing at Lucas Oil Stadium, that not only would Nebraska get beat in those games, but at times they were getting just blown out. And very similar to what we see with Iowa in games against top 5, top 10 teams, is that disparity is still significant. I thought Chad brought up a really good point about what teams felt they had to do against Iowa a year ago. And to his point about the defense, of maybe still something to be seen with this defense, because you knew, I mean, it was an extremely rare, to the point historically bad offense, yet the wins were there for Iowa. You knew if you scored against this defense, that might be enough because of how bad Iowa's offense was. So did the defense get the same type of press and pressure that they would typically get if you know that you're going to have to maybe trade a couple blows back and forth because Iowa's offense is competent? I think that's interesting to watch for this year. I think it is. The one thing that, and I think you would agree with this too, is when you look at the 2 exceptional phases of this with LeVar Woods and special teams, but especially Phil Parker. And I think it's a great point with what he brought up about Wallace too, is as far as that collaboration with that defense is they're always going to get the benefit of the doubt what they do defensively. Yeah. And this is what I was bringing up on Friday about the defensive line for Nebraska. It was coming off the heels of Terrence Knighton talking about, death row, and that was cool and all. But what they're trying to establish just on the defensive line part of it, and hopefully it'll spread throughout every phase of that defense, or at least every level of that defense, is you get to a point that even when you graduate a Ty Robinson or Nash Hutmacher, some of those guys go to the NFL, that you don't even think much about or worry much about, that's a big replacement, because you know that defense is in a position to where they're just going to plug and play. Iowa is in that part where, kind of like some of the Ohio States of, you lost a major corner. Yeah, the next guy's coming. There's always going to be a stud linebacker or linebackers at Iowa. Chances are they're going to have a great defensive tackle. Chances are they're going to have the next great corner or free safety or strong safety coming in, because Phil Parker has set that expectation and standard with that Iowa defense.
There's with Iowa and Nebraska being there today, I hope this question is brought up because this affects both programs in particular. They're not alone in the Big Ten, but these are 2 that come to mind. Is the roster limit of 105. Both Iowa and Nebraska have, finally Nebraska admitted out loud that the developmental program, they waited too long. Iowa has lived on more a developmental program, but they also, both programs have lived on walk-ons. And if 105 is going to be the limit, and it almost 100% will be, that's going to affect Iowa and Nebraska.
Yeah.
Very, very significant. So I hope that Kirk Ferentz and Matt Rule discuss that today, because they're 2 programs that they can go, man, we have greatly benefited from our walk-on program and turning walk-ons into scholarship guys or walk-ons into starters, and now we're going to be limited. How are we going to adjust? That's why, Nebraska and Iowa are very similar in their adjustment to the new age of college athletics. It appears that Iowa got their collective right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of guys on the defense that came back because of the swarm. Now, they had a guy take money and run. We haven't even really talked about him. But he's down in T-Town.
Yep.
They got their athletic director job figured out. Kind of what have we talked about Nebraska? Looks like Nebraska's got their AD job figured out.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like they got their collective. They're ready to battle the challenges from the middle of America against college athletics. But it's a big challenge for both these programs and how they adjust to the 105. Because that's real. And I think Rule will get agitated talking about it. But as he has had with other things, he's got to have a plan. Now you're going to be limited to 85 scholarship guys, 20. And also keep in mind, depth is going to be so huge moving forward. You're playing 12 games. You could potentially play more than that with the playoff. But also think about this. This is what the Big Ten is going to do, and I'm happy they're doing it. And they kind of do it now, but they will do it even more so. They're going to load you. If you are a legit playoff contender, they're going to load your November.
Yep.
And Nebraska's November is already, you get Wisconsin and Iowa in there. You add USC this year. It's a robust Final Three. But Big Ten schedules, I think, will be backloaded moving forward if you think that team is a playoff contender. So by the time you get to November and you're beat down a little bit, what does your depth look like?
Yeah.
What have you developed? Are you utilizing all 85 scholarships and then those additional 20?
That's a great point. And I think when we get into the walk-on conversation, remember one of the more famous ones at Iowa in recent time was Josie Jewell. You get guys, I think, and we do this in Nebraska, especially, back in the 90s when you would have walk-ons that would develop into starters either their junior or senior year. It's not even necessarily that conversation anymore. Like where you're going with it, I think is probably more the 2024 conversation of the importance and value of a walk-on, especially for developmental programs, of the depth part of it. Because we love the good story where one emerges as a starter. That's always so much fun, but that's rare anymore. Usually how that works is there was an injury, a rash of injuries, a guy showed up, and then all of a sudden he put himself squarely in the competition and was able to not let go of that spot. But in order to get that initial playing time or the game reps, it probably took some stuff around him. What's more important right now, and you got two programs where you're right, Iowa's been doing it for years, but what Nebraska, what we know Matt Rule, what this coaching staff, hey, they'll get the 4 and 5 star they want to. Okay, that's still part of it, but being able to identify positionless players, guys that can maybe play, maybe they were more successful offensively, but they maybe have more of a defensive build that they can use. They're going to build those guys up over time in their freshman and sophomore year. By the time they get to their juniors, it's not necessarily, hey, they're in line to start, but they're providing that depth. I think it's a great point about the November part of this, because not only how your schedule gets more demanding, or maybe you have more tougher teams as well, but just the way that this whole thing in the Big Ten, adding more teams, I think even the teams that you would say, oh, it was kind of funny. We were talking about Illinois, so I'm going to go completely against what I just said. But, oh, you've got Illinois. That's not a great team. Well, the pressure's on all those teams to make sure that they're putting out the most competitive product, or as you said, they're going to fall behind. So even if you don't have necessarily that murderous stretch in November, I think that competition is just going to ramp up naturally 1 through 18. So that depth part of it's absolutely huge when it comes to walk-ons.
A little bit later, we'll talk USC. We'll talk to Brandon Vogel as well. Media Day, Day 2 in Indianapolis. Today is Nebraska Day. Matt Rule is scheduled to be on the podium at 11:30, dressed in a suit that he will look super uncomfortable in. And he'll be out of it by 4.
Will he wear a tie?
Did he wear a tie last year?
He did.
He did?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
Pretty sure he did. No, you got me thinking. I'm pretty sure he wore a tie.
Yeah, I think that would be a requirement.
Yeah.
So you only remember the bad stuff. You don't remember the good stuff. All right. That's all to come as we roll till 10 on a hump day on 1620 The Zone. Hey, where you can roll to 132nd and West Dodge in the London Market today, because Lindley Clothing's annual sidewalk sale continues. The weather is warming up and the sale has been red hot. Why? Because Summer is not over. Football might be on the way, but summer is not over. All spring and summer menswear, 50 to 70% off original price at Lindley Clothing's sidewalk sale. Also, those great looking and nice fitting David Donahue dress shirts. They're right now 20 to 50% off at Lindley Clothing's annual sidewalk sale, 132nd and Dodge in the Linden Market, conveniently located. Check them out. Great customer service. You know them, John and Marlene. They've been there forever. Not nearly 90 years like Lindley Clothing has been outfitting men in Omaha, but the staff, they're recognizable. They'll get to know you by name. They deliver top-notch customer service, and they will find the right fit for you. Trust me, you'll find something with the all spring and summer menswear, 50 to 70% off, original price sale, and those David Donahue dress shirts, 20 to 50% off. The Lindley Clothing annual sidewalk sale, 132nd and Dodge in the Linden Market.
I get some new music for this thing. Too lazy, though. Anyway, the Storm Chasers won their third game with a nail-biting 3-2 win against the St. Paul Saints yesterday at Warner Park. In the top of the ninth inning, they take their first lead of the game as Nelson Velasquez drew a walk and stole second to move in scoring position. And with 2 outs, Cam Devaney hammered his team-leading 16th home run of the season, a 2-run shot to left field to give Omaha a 3-1 lead. Headed to the bottom of the ninth after Jonathan Bolin threw a 1-2-3 eighth inning. He came back out for the bottom of the ninth. An error, hit batter, and single loaded the bases, and left-hander Evan Sisk took over with 2 outs. Sisk earned his 6th save of the season and got a ground out to end the ball game as the Saints left the bases loaded for the second time in the game. Congratulations. Bolin earned his team-leading 8th win of the season. In the process, they were all happy, had a meal together, and did a song and dance routine when everything was over. The Storm Chasers continue the series with the Saints. 1 o'clock. Left-hander Anthony Veneziano slated to start for Omaha. 107 if you're scoring home. Other baseball, Paul Skeens lost for the first time in 12 career Major League starts, giving up Alec Burleson's tie-breaking single in the ninth inning that lifted the St. Louis Cardinals over the Pirates 2-1 last night, taking them out for the first time since starting the National League in last week's All-Star game. He pitched past the 7th inning for the first time in the major leagues, but lost for the first time in 24 professional appearances. So congratulations to him. And in football, Eagles rookie and former Iowa dude Cooper DeJean is expected to be sidelined 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. The 40th overall pick in last year's draft sustained the injury when he was caught in an awkward position. We've all been caught in awkward positions before. Anyway, he was doing it during off-season training. He will begin training camp on the non-football injury list, the NFI, in the NFL. But the Eagles are confident in a quick recovery and that he will contribute as expected this season. Michael Gallup, who signed a 1-year contract worth as much as $3 million with the Raiders on April 30th and was expected to compete for the team's number 3 receiver spot, decided, I don't want to be a Raider, so he retired the day before the Raiders' first training camp practice. He's only 28, participated in OTAs and minicamp for the Raiders this season, a 6-year NFL veteran. He caught 266 passes for nearly 4,000 yards and 21 touchdowns, although not all in one season. That would have been nice for the Cowboys. Speaking of the Cowboys, I'm just full-on pissy now. CeeDee Lamb has been unable to land the type of contract extension that other wide receivers, the cooler ones, apparently get. Not expected to report to training camp with the rest of his team. That would be today. Lamb is entering the last year of a deal scheduled to pay him a paltry $17.99 million this season, and the Cowboys have been bracing for the All-Pro to miss the start of camp, because why not? They didn't do anything in free agency. The holdout will not become official until Wednesday, but Lamb was not on the team's charter flight from Dallas Tuesday. That is not a required flight. However, a number of players, including Dak, were already in Oxnard before the buses arrived in mid-afternoon. The Cowboys' first practice scheduled for Thursday like it matters, 8-8 forever. Finally, Salt Lake City was formally awarded the 2034 Winter Olympics following a Wednesday vote by the International Olympic Committee in Paris, the one in France, not in Texas, which gives Utah its second game after hosting in 2002. That was a good year. A watch party was planned at 3 a.m. local time, because it's not like they were drunk, 11 a.m. in Paris, Utah. To celebrate the announcement, large crowds were expected to go to sleep at the event that coincides with a state holiday marking the date Mormon pioneers discovered the Salt Lake Valley, northern Utah. The more you know. Salt Lake City was the lone contender for the Olympic Committee. It was considering for 2034 climate change and high operational costs have reduced the number of cities willing and able to welcome the Winter Games. Guess Miami's out. Utah has capitalized on low interest elsewhere, pitching itself to Olympic officials as well. No one else wants it. We'll take it. Anyway, as an enthusiastic repeat host, if the committee goes forward with the proposed permanent rotation of Winter Olympic cities, 2034, I just hope I'm not dead. It's true.
As do we. We hope that. We wish that upon
I think
no
there's
one.
a lot of people in your family that hope they have the same thing, Jimmy.
I wouldn't be too sure about that.
All right.
You never know.
All right. Thank you. Did you guys watch the Splinker last night in slow-mo?
The Splinker is, after the Cleveland game, which, by the way, thank you, Kansas City and Minnesota, for doing your part. Get us
That
back.
ninth inning in Target Field was a mess.
That's why you got the highlights, because
Yes, I know.
being sad. It's like, no.
All
we're
right,
gonna
60 and 40. Yeah, the Royals got off to a rough start.
Mm-hmm.
Marsh wasn't very good last night, but Duran was terrible in the ninth inning last night up at Target Field.
Well, I'm sorry for your second favorite team right there. But yes, I
had a bad night. I hung around through an hour and 24-minute rain delay to watch the Brewers and the Cubs who've scored 7 runs in 5 games since the All-Star break last night. Ruined another really good. I mean, it was like deja vu.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can relate to these many times.
I mean, he like helped his trade stock. Yeah,
You know
they
how many
lose 1-0 to the Brewers.
You know how many Corey Kluber outings I sat through that were very, very similar?
You're winning. You can't.
I know. I'm just saying.
No. You stay on the high side.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it while you can.
Let us muck around.
But yeah, so during this was actually kind of interesting because I was watching it on the MLB app, and so it's Bally Sports Cleveland, that they actually had a red breaking graphic that Paul Skeens is going into the 8th. I was like, really? Like that's actually because and as Jimmy said, huh?
Yeah, first time
and then goes to the 9th.
He went to the 9th.
Yeah,
now they let him go into the 9th.
He was. I mean, Cardinals have.
Can you look any better losing?
No, I mean he's filthy. His
John Smoltz Game 7 of the World Series.
90. Good point. The 91st pitch last night was 101.
Yep.
I mean, he was really, really good, and he is. I mean, the Pirates sneakily have a couple of really good starters.
Shout out Josh.
They have been better with Skeens there.
Mm-hmm.
But man, they have the luxury of what the Cardinals have and a lockdown guy on the back end of the bullpen, like they have, who's got 33 saves last night. But Skeens is a dude, man. Every night you have to watch him pitch and just stay healthy, big fella. Stay healthy.
Please.
You know that was this first loss since the SEC tournament last year. His first loss in the majors, but he had not been handed a loss since the SEC tournament.
24 games.
In Omaha, they won, right? But so he didn't factor in. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I thought he had maybe one or two in the minus.
Nope.
By the way, Coco is going to be the female flag bearer for the Olympics. We
Coco
talked about
Gauff?
LeBron. Yeah.
Okay.
Good choice.
Nice. Yeah.
Nice. Hey, when we come back.
Saul Skeens, by the way, plus 400 in the NL Cy Young.
Why not?
Put himself right there, right behind Wheeler and Sale.
Why not? And Wheeler was pretty good last night for 7 scoreless?
Mm-hmm.
When we come back, so I heard the afternoon guys were discussing this with Michael Bruns yesterday. So Nebraska is preseason 8th. If they stayed there, how would you feel? But if you are preseason 8th, what is your projected record supposed to be if you're 8th in an 18-team league? It was a good discussion yesterday. We're going to get into that when we come back at 7:41. We'll talk some USC football coming up at 9. We'll talk life with Brandon Vogel from his study that has many leather-bound books coming up at 9:40. And Matt Rule from a podium with Memorial Stadium in the background. We'll talk to the media at 11:30 today. And then a week from now, football people will be playing football.
Yes.
NFL people who get paid are playing football right now.
You guys realize there's a Saturday night practice that is not too far away that you can go to. And you can go to. And you can go to. And everyone listening to us can go to.
For only $25.
Yes.
It's a great deal.
Well, Saturday night at Memorial Stadium.
I would. So
go have a hot dog.
I'm going to go.
As you should.
But I would pay $100 to go to the barbecue this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Is it all you can eat? Because then you can eat your money's worth. And
when it's a recruiting weekend, they can do whatever they want. You want to turn the stadium upside down for a potential 5-star offensive tackle who may or may not show up? I'd rename the street out front.
Who they bringing into
Stadium Way? I'd call it Sanders Way.
What type of barbecue are they going to have at this one too? By the way,
sacrifice a cow.
It's going to be a real barbecue. They're going to go Skeeter Barnes.
Is that the most amazing story in Nebraska restaurant
really,
history? That Skeeter Barnes
I love
still
that
exists?
Well, that and the story you've told me about.
We were required to eat there as a sponsor of the network.
That story. I love that story. And the fact that it wasn't on the house or anything. It was just like, nope, you need to go.
Yeah, and you need
support
to pay
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pay full
and
price.
And make sure you know who they but make sure you pay. You got no coupons, but you got to go there and pay. Now,
have your Pinnacle Sports Network badge on.
I do feel a little jilted because I was told after my Skeeter Barnes rant that the Skeeter Barnes that is in Kearney or out in central Nebraska
Kearney
is better than whatever was in Lincoln.
Really?
And so I didn't get the full experience.
We had one in Columbus for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, they had one in Lincoln. You know how long it lasted?
Not long. Just like the one in Columbus. Not long.
Less than Mike Riley's tenure at Nebraska. All right, 43 past the hour. Thank you. Hey, I'm sorry. He's caught 2 strays today. I drank beer with the guy in the Midway
That wasn't
Airport.
a stray.
That wasn't a stray. That was a cool story.
I think you actually made him
He's
even
a
more
nice
likable.
man.
Wasn't my fault. He wasn't very good.
Yeah. You made him more likable. I've always liked Mike Riley as a person. You made him even more likable that he just came strolling into whatever the Midway bar is you guys are drinking at. Hopefully it was Harry Carey's. And,
No, it was an Irish place.
oh, I know that one.
Yeah.
It's kind of tucked away in that little corner there,
Yeah.
right by the windows to where the planes are.
Flanagan's?
It's got an Irish name. I can't remember, but you know it's Irish because it's very green.
This
very,
is also not
very assuming.
This is not the same trip. See, you only remember bad things about Media Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had many flight delays coming back.
This was not the same trip that a Carney sports talk station duo that one of the hosts
got really bummed,
was hammered out of his mind and wanted to touch Damon.
Damn it, Doug.
I thought we were going to have a Terrell Davis thing on the plane. He wanted to touch Damon. And I'm like, I was encouraging him.
You would.
Of course you were.
I mean, I would.
Like, yeah, he loves that.
Many people used to touch him when he played. They tackled him.
Dude, we would have met an air marshal. Yeah. Dude, I felt, and he he's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't know. He didn't know if we were flying to Omaha or Osaka.
Damn it, Doug.
This isn't Orlando.
Daddy!
Oh, it was Daddy.
Oh, it wasn't Doug.
Yeah,
it wasn't Doug.
I knew it would be Doug.
Yeah.
It was Daddy.
I was terrible, and I apologize, and I am asking forgiveness here because I was like, "Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy?"
Wasn't there like not just you guys, but a lot of members of the media on that plane too?
Yep, a lot of pictures were taken, a lot of stories were told.
Did he pass out?
Actually, as we got really, really close.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, to Omaha. I'm like, wow, if you're gonna pass out, I mean,
know.
go early.
Right.
Don't go late.
Enjoy your nap because now you got to wake up and do it all over again. It's going to be completely discombobulated.
And you got to drive from Epley to Kearney.
Hopefully, Doug was driving.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah, I don't think the guy that was hammered that passed out on the plane drove.
I'm pretty sure he didn't.
Maybe in the old days.
Hey, fellow sportscaster of the year in Nebraska, I think he has more sense than that.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. Drove that little Pinto with the station logo on the side.
The magnetic one, you slap on it. Like, hey, we need that thing back because our country station has a remote tomorrow.
Hey, kudos to them because they are in Indianapolis. Those two like grind. They chase down guys. They'll run across 50 yards.
Yes.
You go, fuck!
Yes.
And then all of a sudden PJ comes over and he sits down.
Why are people saying, is PJ Fleck really going to wear capris today?
Are they in style?
All right, wait, I'm sorry, they're tomorrow, right? Minnesota's tomorrow. Right?
I think so.
Yeah, they're tomorrow. Somebody's on the stream said something about PJ wearing capris.
I don't know if they're in
I don't
style.
know.
To ask the
I want to
kids.
see what his face looks like.
Oh, remember that
Yeah,
story? That story though, when he talked about the old.
Again, you only remember bad things from Media Day.
I just remember everybody talking about like, did he have work done? Thinking, oh, it's PJ being vain, and then you found out what happened when it was was it something from the boat? It snapped and just like a buckle snapped and just destroyed his face. Oh,
let's turn dark.
I'm sorry, PJ. That does not sound fun. So you do what you need to do with your face.
I remember asking him last year if he would come on, and he's like, "No." He paused. He went, "No."
Should have said, "But we saved a life. Come on."
That's worse when you have to think about it. I'm more happy with the, I'm sorry, guys. I can't get it. I can't fit it in. But when you think about it, it's like they're considering you. I don't like that. No.
I mean, I even dropped the name of somebody who runs his football stadium that is a friend of mine. Oh, yeah. Tell Brady you said hello.
Did you do that with Brett Bielema too?
Well,
yeah.
And his director of operations is a guy from FGCU that I was with. And he goes, I've tried. He goes, Pat came over and he goes, I've tried. Coach just didn't want to do it.
Man.
Bert. Come on, Bert.
Just root against them.
At least the Nebraska people are nice.
Well, I think PJ was dealing with a lot with that weird article that came out during that time.
More reason to be nice.
I don't know.
I mean, you'd think.
Man, it was a weird vibe because he was loaded. He was loaded to go after the allegations.
Didn't he read the article up there?
Tell you what, he
better
be loaded to go against the current day college athletics. We talked about Illinois, I think, being in trouble. Boy, Minnesota is in a weird spot now with the new college athletics. All right, 7:48. Quick break. Come back with more. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. So if you've watched Big Ten media days or any media days, there'll be the moderator will give an introduction and the coach will walk up and he'll have the opening statement. What if every coach got to pick their walk-up music?
They should.
They should.
There's another little subtle thing you could do to differentiate yourself.
This is a July topic. I love it.
Make
18 walk-up songs.
Okay. I'm going to have a campaign. MMDM. Make media days matter.
Yeah.
Again, we're going to be the have coaches pick their walk-up music. Give them a little identity.
And you know what it does? It leads into a great question when you first get to, you're the first 2 or 3 that gets the microphone handed to you and the camera goes over to you. You get to tell your affiliation. You could say, all right, so you had Enter Sandman. Explain, please. Because if you know it's not necessarily the tunnel walk song for the various teams or what they have as an entrance, if it's something maybe that motivated them in football, maybe it's just something that means, maybe it's something that the team is into.
Well,
there's always a story behind it. And aren't those things a little bit more fun to learn about than the typical cliches that are going to come out about any type of season and what you're going to do?
Well, this would be
It's
the
a great
scenario.
idea.
This would be the scenario for if this was the case for the Big Ten media days. Rule today gets announced, and all of a sudden on the speakers in Lucas Oil Stadium, AC/DC Back in Black fires up. And so one of the questions is, Coach, why was the selection of AC/DC yours? He said, well, do you know Nebraska football, young journalist? And the journalist will say, yeah, Tanner Lee.
The last great quarterback.
And Matt Rule will go, well, let me tell you something. We have a thing here called the Black Shirts. And I don't know if you noticed this last year, but of everything that went wrong, something went right was the defense. And we're going to be better on defense. So we are back in black. And then let me go a step further. Young journalist, are you familiar with Brian Johnson? And the journalist is going to say, backup Braves catcher? And Rule politely will say, no.
So much for
Lead
Bon
singer with AC/DC. And when I was on a recruiting trip, when I was recruiting at Baylor, I walked in to a little hole-in-the-wall bar in San Marcos. And none other than Brian Johnson was in there, sitting at the end of the bar.
With Angus. Just there.
And then we talked about, wouldn't it be cool if you had a center that was named Ben Scott? Because we have a former frontman, rest in peace, Bon Scott.
Oh.
And it was like...
He had a good time on his way
It was
out.
like, I could...
See?
Yeah.
See? These are the stories that you could get from each walk-up experience. You're damn right.
Big AC/DC fan here. Thank you. So I heard this discussion yesterday on this fine radio station. If Nebraska is projected 8th, what does that mean in terms of a record? But before you answer that, Mr. Nick, can I call you Mr. Nick?
Nick or the, yeah.
That's where I was thinking.
Nick the what? Bachelor party, folks.
Daily occurrence over here. Okay, so this has turned into the Mike Riley Day on the show.
We thought it was going to be Nebraska Day, but it's actually Mike Riley Day.
Since Mike Riley became the head coach at Nebraska, Nebraska football has played 9 seasons in the Big Ten. Mike Riley's second year, they won 6. Do you know, and then I'm going to give you, 2021 was a little bit of a rough conference season. Don't know if you recall that or not.
Yeah, a little bit.
Nebraska went 1-8. So 9 seasons since Mike Riley has been the head coach at Nebraska. When he started in 15 to Matt Rule last year.
Yep.
7 of those 9 seasons in the Big Ten, Nebraska football won exactly 3 conference games. Won 6 in 16, won 1 in 21. Even in the COVID year, they managed to get to 3 and stay at 3.
Yeah.
So the question becomes this. Is that really what Matt Rule has been talking about in the offseason, is chasing 3? Because that's what Nebraska football has become, is winning 3
Chasing
conference
3
games.
conference wins.
That's another question that I hope my fellow journalists will ask today. I kid because I care.
And the most recent episode came out last night.
And if they win only 3 conference games this year, Big Red Overreaction will never go off the air.
No. It'll carry right into Monday.
We will drop the names of our shows, and we will just do Big Red Overreaction if Nebraska only wins 3 conference games. But back to the question. If you were projected 8th in an 18-team league, what's your record supposed to be?
From a conference record standpoint, if you're 8th, I feel like you are probably 6. Probably 6 conference wins, right between 5 and 6. I get the feeling with where that middle tier is right now, I'm pushing more towards 6 conference wins. Now, when I think of Nebraska finishing either 7th or 8th, I think as I said, you're probably closer to 5 conference wins, or I'm sorry, closer to 6 conference wins than you are 5. I think you're closer to 8 total wins than you are 7. So I think that probably is an 8-4 season with 6 conference wins there.
I think projected.
Yes.
Well, now I just did the math. So you got Nebraska going 2-1 in the non-con?
Oh, no, I'm just saying if you are,
okay.
if you're
watch out
8th,
for those UNI Panthers.
I'm just saying if you're 8th, it's probably sitting right there between the 5 and 6, but probably more likely the 6 because I think there's going to be a log jam there.
I think projected 8th in a. Hey, Georgia Southern got Nebraska. Anything can happen.
Remember the next day?
What happened on
Very
that?
well.
The
But,
next day,
the
after
NFL
Georgia
season
Southern?
started.
Well, actually, yes. The Bears and Niners are playing in a slop fest, and I was scrambling to figure out how we're going to cover that.
I think you're right. I agree with you. I think if you're projected 8th in this conference, 8-4 sounds like the record.
Which that is the number I think a lot of people realistically, again, tangibly, have entertained for Nebraska.
Big words there.
Yes. Because I think when we have these conversations.
Scrabble, you could get a bunch of points with the words you just used.
Yes, maybe. It'd probably be challenged.
I think board games should come back, but continue on.
Yeah.
Instead of playing Scrabble on your phone, I
Yes.
think we should sit down as families and spin the Scrabble board.
You know what? Any brewery that's worth their salt, they have those. They actually have those board games. Most breweries, they'll have the board games because while you're drinking, you play board games.
I'm very particular in my board game. I don't want to be touching other people's board game because you don't know what they've done with that board game.
I saw Chutes and Ladders at a brewery in Michigan. It was really exciting. I haven't played Chutes and Ladders forever. But anyway, I think that if you're having that conversation about the projections for Nebraska, you've got to differentiate what if everything goes well, because nobody wants to have that conversation until Nebraska gets away from being a 5-win team. But if you look at the schedule, roster, everything that, again, is tangible with what your eyes told you from last year 1 of Matt Rule, to what can be in year 2 with some upgrades in certain areas, that it is a tangible conversation to say, boy, 8 is definitely within reach. But I'm not willing to go beyond 7 because that's where I'd like to see that improvement play out on the field. But I think that's the conversation that people have. Now, when you start getting into 9, that's where I think you're probably getting away from it a little bit. But from where, you think about that, though, that's a difference of 1 game. If we're in agreement that 8th in the Big Ten is a record of 8-4, which obviously you would take, that's a huge jump from last year. You're right on schedule, and maybe in some cases a little bit ahead of schedule. But more than anything, you took advantage of what you needed to take advantage from a schedule standpoint. That sets you up for 25. You get to 9. I mean, my God, of course you're going to take that, but I don't know if that's tangible. To me personally, I don't think it is, because this is where the eyeballs need to see a lot more.
Clint says, as a texter, he says, as a family, we play Mario Party. It's a video board game.
Ooh. Anything involving Mario, though, I'm typically in on.
I really think the American society started to break down when this happened. Just hold on here for a moment. Let me have my moment. When we stopped gathering as a family and eating dinner at the table, and then at 8:00 we turned off the TV and decided that we're going to play a board game, I think that's when we saw the breakdown in values. I'm not sure exactly when it began, But when the board game became less important and the board game just took up space in the back of the closet or ended up in a garage sale, I think that's when America started to break down. I don't have any scientific proof. It's just a general vibe. So if I'm using my personal, the country has been broken down for about 29 years because that might be the last time that I played as a family a board game. But I think we should bring back board games.
They're there, Gary. You just got to find them.
I don't have a problem, Clint. You can eat dinner and play in the same room. A lot of people do it, whether you're young or old.
Yeah, it's true.
It actually is multitasking. It also, you might be in a rent control place and you can't afford something, so you gotta eat and play.
You eat where you play. You play where you eat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I think that was on a Ron Jeremy billboard once. All right, 8:04. More from Big Ten Media Days as Nebraska speaks today. And also I have some jealousy.
Oh.
It's not new jealousy. I have jealousy that...
It's hate jealousy.
No, it's not even hate jealousy. I'm like, oh, man, I'd like to have that. Now, I'm not going to go steal it because I can't.
Well, that's good.
I tried that as a little kid.
I know.
Like I was jealous of somebody who had a baseball bat that I didn't because their parents had more money than my parents had.
Or somebody who looked like they're giving away free loaves of bread and cheese.
Well, I didn't know. See, that was just a mistake. I didn't know that you had to...
It would be rude to turn them down.
Dude, it's not like they gave you a card.
There's
Hold
been
on.
some great revelations of Gary's life in this past month.
I want to protect myself here.
Okay.
When I got in line for the free government cheese and bread, I didn't know. I thought it was just a giveaway for everybody.
I thought it was sandwich day.
They didn't have a card. Like no one asked me, "Can I see your card?" When I got to the person that was handing it out, they just gave it to me. So technically, it was not my fault. I did not know until I got home and I was educated that is not for...
What was the other thing that you had to march your little rear end back and
I stole some stuff. Apparently I grew up in a household that they thought that being a thief was not appropriate.
How dare they? How dare they? So you're not jealous of the bread and cheese then?
You just told them you're a klepto. Like, I'm working on it.
Another texter says...
It's my cross to bear.
Another texter says, Grandma said things started going downhill when big front porches turned into people on their back patios and you didn't hang out with your neighbors anymore.
That's coming back.
Oh,
Actually, it's back. It's back.
In your neighborhood?
My neighborhood is all... We are all driveway people.
You mean the big front porch is coming back?
The big front...
I like big front porches.
Who doesn't?
Well, there are some people that, because you maybe don't have space. And also it's, how you build out. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes some work.
Yeah.
You got to do some work on it.
Yeah. I noticed there's a lot more gatherings in driveways.
Yeah. Driveways are the modern day's front porch. And the lemonade that you consume now typically comes in adult beverage content, but that's fine.
Hey, by the way, Youth of Omaha, I see you out more trying to sell stuff.
Oh my God. You're not wrong.
One of the best ideas, and God bless the parents and their young daughter. There is a Russell Speeder's car wash, and right on the corner, this little girl is there almost every day selling something.
Really?
Yes.
Like my Girl Scout friend who's set up by a dispensary.
Seems like people are either guilted or they're like intrigued that they pull off in the little, there's a vacant restaurant right on the corner across from her that they'll pull off park and then they'll walk over and they'll buy her lemonade, or I think she might have some pastries or something.
She's hustling.
She looks like she's about 8-9 years old.
Nice.
Entrepreneur.
Hey, but right next to a car wash, so you're going to get a lot of traffic. Okay?
That's going to keep coming.
Hey, I'm going to be working for her someday.
Yeah.
We all are.
When I'm working at Walmart greeting people.
You can't knock the hustle.
With my bow tie and my 75-year-old self.
So I was going to take a picture of this yesterday. Got up to the light by Crossroads. No, but it was your hat conversation. There was an older gentleman who was walking from...
What'd you say, 72nd and Dodge?
Yep.
What was
Did you see him?
No. What was he...
He wasn't protesting. There was no protest. Although he was heading...
I'm here for Bangladesh.
He was heading to that corner.
Where is Bangladesh?
He was going from the scooter side to that corner. So maybe he was about to protest.
Was he walking straight across the...
Yes.
Through the traffic, not on the
no,
walkway?
he was actually going through the walkway, and then maybe he would have turned back up.
I mean, if he was going to walk catty corner and straight through 4 lanes of traffic,
He had maybe the most fantastic hybrid, like the organ grinder hat, like you'd see at like a barbershop quartet. He had a combination of that and cowboy hat, and you could tell it was perfectly fitted for him. Now, he was probably in his 70s, and he did have a bow tie on, too. So I don't know what he was about. I really stop and just say, what do you do? But I almost took a picture because I thought maybe that hat is what you're after.
By the way, thank you. I've read through this. George, who listens to us down in South Texas, gave me some pointers on my cowboy hat aspirations.
To give you some context?
He would know.
Not context, but he gave me, it's
Okay.
really good. Thank you, George. I appreciate the email.
Nice.
All right, we got to take a break. People are like standing at the door going, you guys got to go to break. We got to talk to you.
Oh,
That's
they
why
must have left.
That's what I do. When we come back, so there will be an individual that will be discussed today with Matt Rule. He will be kind and he will include two other guys in a conversation. I actually want him to be honest, whether it be publicly or privately, about one Dylan Raiola, whose brother will be on campus this weekend in the class of 26. It's Mornings with Sharp and Handley at 1620 The Zone.
Halftime brought to you by Omaha Whiskey Fest 2024, the largest celebration of whiskey in the region, coming your way September 28th in downtown Omaha.
I haven't heard this song in a while. Welcome back in. Mornings with Sharp and Handley and Jimmy. 1620 The Zone. 1620 The Zone TV.
Hey.
Did guys say that?
Hey. Or do you say, hey, girl? Wednesday. Why not? Hey, girl. What? I just wanted to keep doing that because of the look on your face. It's great.
You get out very often?
not as much as I'd like to.
What are you, me?
Well, there's a college football game that's consuming my time.
Coming up at the top of the 9 o'clock hour, Ryan Abraham, who covers USC, will join us. So I was thinking about the inflatable duck that was on the river in downtown Indianapolis yesterday.
It's beautiful.
That's like when Marcus Mariota was and Joey Harrington was a Heisman Trophy candidate. They would plaster things all over downtown New York.
Is that a new trend?
Letting you know.
Is that a new trend of something like that?
Where you put the enormous billboard / posters on big buildings.
What if at the beautiful new downtown Gene Leahy Mall, you have a big inflatable Billy Blue Jay?
Yeah.
So
on a big game.
So it just brought up the point that Omaha Athletics really dropped the ball on something. Like really, really dropped the ball. This was a great idea that I think I have a good relationship with the athletic director at Omaha.
Is this the Anthony Steakhouse bowl again?
Yes, and he would not entertain me.
You could have him floating.
No, this is what you do with it. So if you remember Anthony Steakhouse, which I don't know what's going in there. There's all kinds of, they're redoing the bridge on 72nd, and it's a mess.
Omaha's just under construction.
But they're like something is moving into where Anthony's was because they're doing a whole remodel there. But it's not going to be Anthony's.
No.
So Anthony's, rest in peace, Omaha historic steakhouses that have gone by the wayside, and now they just show up on the wall somewhere.
Many great luncheons were had there.
Oh, hey, what was the club?
The Blue Line Club?
No, not the club. They had
the bar.
Wasn't the End Zone, was it?
It was Ozone.
Ozone.
The Ozone, yes. Yeah, the Ozone was. You get some good live acts there too. I mean, local. Most likely you would see. We were just talking about him last week.
311?
No.
Oh.
No, not quite at that level, but we were just talking about them. They perform everywhere. They've been performing for like 30 years. Not Groove Puppet, but Lemon Fresh Day.
Oh, my next guess.
You'd see a lot of Lemon Fresh Day there.
I was going to guess the 69 Boys, but never mind.
Nope, not them. Although, no.
Yeah, little Tootsie Roll didn't hurt anybody.
They ain't no Mulberry Sisters.
I don't know them.
They were sisters.
Were they an extensive family? What kind of music did they play? Where did they play?
Well, they were Mulberry Lane.
Mulberry Lane. Yeah, I know Mulberry Lane.
But weren't they sisters?
Were they?
Yeah, they were all sisters.
Okay, I didn't know.
Like the Pointers.
They used to do a lot of stuff. They would come into the radio station a lot.
Death metal.
Oh.
I never heard them sing, but they were very, very nice. Whatever happened to the Mulberry Lane?
I'm sure they're still doing something somewhere.
Touring with JoJo Siwa.
Omaha's home.
Okay, so they sold that steer that was on top of Anthony's.
Yeah.
It only cost $45,000, Adrian. How come they could not have bought the steer?
Mm-hmm.
And then what you do with the steer, you replace what I think is a worthless message board at 67th and Center on the entrance to Baxter Arena. Okay. You can't see it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's too small. They got a lot
of
of great information on there, but you can't see the thing as you're driving 95 miles an hour down Center.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see it.
No, it's true because especially the angle of it. Yeah, you're right.
They need to make it bigger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big proponent of things need to be bigger, not smaller.
It's always bigger in Texas.
I would have a hard time running in government right now.
Let's overspend.
Or making a fast food menu. Talking to you out there, you know who I'm talking to. But what they could have done is I advocated buy the steer.
Mm-hmm.
It only costs $45,000.
Only.
Okay. I mean, so what? You don't get a forward from Notre Dame to play left wing, okay? But we got a steer. We got a steer, and you put it right there, at 67th and center. This huge steer, and then whenever Omaha Athletics wins something, the steer lights up. Like smoke comes out.
Ooh, the smoke coming out of the nostrils?
Yes.
Oh, I like that.
It was a great idea.
I do like
you
that.
You know how long that conversation lasted? 36 seconds. He's like,
that's 30 more seconds than I thought.
And then we're like, why don't you buy it for Tal Anderson and put it behind the wall?
See, I love that idea because then you hit it, and then if the thing can make noise, and then you partner, obviously you'd have to partner with someone not Anthony's, but that person gets a free steak like in Bull Durham.
Plus, I think many deals have been brokered involving Omaha Athletics at Anthony's. It would have been appropriate. So when I saw the duck yesterday, I thought, we let the steer from Anthony's go to North Dakota, and it's at some stupid truck stop that sells petroleum.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now my jealousy.
Oh, I thought you were jealous of Oregon for what they did in that.
Okay. I'm all in on Oregon.
The inflatable duck.
Doesn't love it. A little ducky.
They're either going to be great or they're going to blow up. But I'm a big fan of trying. But they're brash, man. So I like that. And they got a brand. So they got a big brand and they know how to do it. Listening to Ryan Day yesterday and all the stuff about Michigan, you could go 11-1. But boy, if that loss is to Michigan, we know how important that game is.
Mm-hmm.
I am so jealous of that rivalry. Nobody else in college athletics have what Michigan and Ohio State has. That is the best rivalry across sports, where one game for 364 days changes your whole mood. You could give me the Iron Bowl. You could give me the Red River. You could give me Duke, North Carolina basketball. You could give me Nebraska, Oklahoma back in the day, and I would listen to that. But there is no greater rivalry in college sports right now than Michigan, Ohio State football. They think about that game every single day.
Yep.
And I wish we had something like that. But just to listen, because look, everybody knows what Ohio State is up against and the expectations. There were as many discussion points about their roster and championship as there was about one opponent.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you're cooking with peanut oil in a rivalry. And I'm not afraid to admit jealousy, because I would love to be knee deep in the middle of that, talking Michigan, Ohio State every single day.
Yeah. And it's not something where people would feel like, okay, you're really beating a dead horse here. The emotion, anger, excitement, all of those things that we love near and dear to college football, it invokes that from pretty much 365 days a year. And here's another thing of Big Ten Media Days where we can make it more fun. Now, there have been years that both Michigan and Ohio State have shared the stage, but they need to be on the same day. Those two need to be, and I get it because you want to spread out some of the heavy hitters, a little bit more of the following. But if you had Ryan Day's podium session followed by, well, it would have been better when it was Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, does the rivalry take a little bit of a hit because there's no Harbaugh, because he got in the head of Day?
I think so.
And he really ignited it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be Sharon Moore's.
He became a point of contention for Ohio State fans.
I think so. Because even if you're not an Ohio State fan, there are very few college football or NFL fans that would say, unless they're a Chargers fan, probably some Niners fans still love him too. Maybe Stanford fans. But if he was at your school or coached your organization and gave you some good times, you're probably going to still hold him in at least somewhat high regard. But I feel like everybody else, because of that personality, it's so quirky, it's so all over the place. Sometimes he picks weird battles. Sometimes he cheats. That he does get he gets a lot of strays. And so when you are in that position of, I freaking hate that guy, but you can't beat him, it frustrates you even that much more. It's one thing if you're in a rivalry, but there's a coach, and you're like, gosh, it's just a good guy. As much as I need to hate him and want to hate him, I don't hate him. That makes it tough. But when you have a guy that's so easy to dig in on, so that I think that's going to be Sharon Moore's challenge in this rivalry. He's going to need to be other than just the fact that he's the Michigan head coach, he's going to need to do some stuff or have some presence that's going to really rub Ohio State the wrong way. And you know how you do that? You beat him. Because it's amazing. And even Joey Kaufman said this yesterday. when you ask the question of what is success with those type of expectations, what is the bare minimum of success? And what did he say? That game against Michigan. They could be in the college football playoff. They could be in the national championship game. But if they lose that game to Michigan, it's still going to feel somewhat empty.
I was late to the party with Nebraska, Oklahoma. By the time I got here, Nebraska was hanging an interstate number on Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Did people talk about Nebraska, Oklahoma every single day?
So you got to remember when that was happening too. I was pretty young, so I wasn't tuned into local sports. But I do remember. So I always remember
blame
this.
your parents.
I do. Well, and speaking of my parents, so we would be out on Black Friday, and I remember
shopping at South Roads in Bellevue.
Yeah, and Team Outlet getting a starter jacket for less the cost.
Nice.
As soon as that game was even near kickoff, and it's still this way to an extent, although not as much, that the place would scatter. People had I just remember people walking around with their radios, like actual handheld radios, listening to the pregame while they were out and about. Because as soon as that thing was even getting closer within a half hour, everybody was where they needed to be.
The Sony Sports Walkman.
Yep.
There's not even a debate, right? That Michigan-Ohio State football is the best rivalry in all of sports.
That's why it's called the game.
I don't think there's a debate on that.
I mean, Fox will tell you, yeah. have you seen our revenue?
Look at our numbers
from
on
that
this
game.
one.
Yeah. When we come back, so when Matt Rule speaks in 3 hours, he will speak highly of his quarterbacks. I wish that he would just speak about one and speak the truth. And if he would, I'll tell you what I think he should say when we come back. We'll talk USC football at the top of the hour. Lincoln Riley is there today. Who are you more excited to hear from, Dan Lanning or Lincoln Riley?
That one's not even close either, Dan Lanning. Lincoln Riley to me is going to be...
But more success from Lincoln Riley. But 19-8 at USC, maybe a rebuilding year, maybe a team that doesn't win 8. They're the most fascinating team to me in the Big Ten.
Yeah. As far as who I'm more excited to hear compared to who has a more interesting first year in the Big Ten, again, I don't think it's even close.
So we'll talk USC football coming up at 9. Brandon Vogel as well. I'll tell you what Matt Rule should say about number 15 when we come back on Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620 The Zone. All right, rolling through a Wednesday. Good show, lots of laughs. I apologize to Mulberry Lane.
Yeah, when you said the Mulberry Sisters, I've heard of Mulberry Lane, but when you said Mulberry Sisters,
wouldn't you think that maybe if you're in a group that's called Mulberry Lane, that maybe you are
there's relation,
like you're Diane and Ginger Mulberry,
or maybe it's just the street that a bunch of friends grew up on.
You're related to the former point guard at Arkansas.
Maybe that's where it started.
These are questions that have to be asked. Yeah. Questions will be asked today of many teams, 6 to be exact. The Big Ten Media Days. That includes Nebraska. Nebraska, Iowa there, UCLA, USC. Oh, I see what they're doing. They put Nebraska and Iowa together. They put UCLA and USC together.
Rivalries.
Oh, and then the great rivalry between Penn State and Michigan State. Oh, It is Rivalry Wednesday in Indianapolis.
Who played at Ford Field to wrap up the season last year? The last two teams you mentioned. Rivalry? I think so.
Oh. Mm-hmm. So Matt Rule will be asked many questions, and he will say many things, and we will all go, God, this is refreshing to have a coach that is very comfortable in those settings and likes to talk and likes to sell the program. But here's the other thing. He's going to be asked about his quarterback situation. Going to be asked about number 15, Dylan Raiola. And he will be probably the stock answer he's had about praise for Dylan, but also it's a competition. We like the movement in the room. We got Harburg. We got Kalen. You saw him in the spring. You saw the development they've had. And then we brought a guy in from Northwestern. We really like him. We like where we're at in the quarterback room. He's going to say all the nice things to make sure that he doesn't single anybody out. And then I want him to look around the corner, and people on TV can see me, motion to the Nebraska contingent.
Come closer.
Come to the hallway. And then I want him to do this. I want him to look into the eyes of the media and say this. Guys out there, I have to say that, because we still got a competition going on. But I'm going to be honest with you. Our season is on the back of a freshman. Now, I've seen some things this summer that I went, whoa. I heard good things when he went down to Georgia, not to be a devil, but to work with a quarterback coach like he did recently. Last year, we didn't have great quarterback play, and we could have gone to a bowl game. We feel like our quarterback play with number 15 will be better this year. And so it allows us to dream of big things, and it's changed the vibe on our team because guys around him all summer have seen what he can be. Not a finished product, but it allows us to dream. And so I want you guys to know that our season rests, a good season to a great season, rests on the back of a freshman. And I also want you to know that we have a guy that, like a guy that rolled in back in the early 90s and changed the trajectory and the projection and the perception of our football program, we might have that guy. And that guy, we want to win on the field. We want to win off the field. And also, I'm going to be honest with you, media people that have made the trip to Indianapolis, and we appreciate it. As he's in a hallway surrounded, and people are like, what are they talking about? We are all in on the family. We got Dylan. Dylan's had an incredible experience so far. We got Dayton this weekend. Dayton has spent a lot of time in Lincoln this summer. He's been around the fellas. We got Dad, who has some ink on the stadium. We love the family. We got the Unk, who is recruiting his off. We also got a daughter that is in the recruiting office. Guys, we've gone all in. The backs of this season rest on a freshman. He won't say that.
No.
But I wish he would, because in my opinion, that's reality.
Normally, I would say, even if that were to get out, that is a lot to put on any freshman at any position. this is where this isn't sunshine and rainbow talk here. This is going back to what Dylan has experienced as a guy when he could first just throw the football. And the expectations were, I don't want to say it was driven down his throat so bad that at some point, you get the helicopter parents and they're forcing kids to play sports or to live out dreams that they were unable to live out, or to hold them to certain expectations because they set that standard themselves. This is more about God-given ability that a young man has and happened to be in a family that understands the game and understands the process of that. Where I think that is a huge benefit as opposed to a detriment to someone's development, both physically and mentally. And what I'm getting at is you put that type of pressure, if you were, again, you're right, he's not going to say this. But if it were to be out there, and it was said by, maybe it's said by Marcus Satterfield. Maybe there's a hot mic moment.
Okay, so what if... Okay, kid hasn't played a football game yet. Right. I get that. I'm dealing in reality here, okay? I'm not in some fantasy land, all right? I don't go to the convenience store to get my gas, all right? I don't get on the internet and get in fantasy land. I don't even play the game, all right? I like to live in reality. The reality is that the future of Nebraska football rests on the shoulders of number 15. And you can say, oh, don't put that on him. The kid's had a lot of expectations, and he's dealt with that, and he's been in the spotlight his entire life, okay? He came to Nebraska for that reason to embrace it.
Yes.
Now, he's got to play his position, and he's got to do it, and he's going to go through growing pains.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to see him deal with adversity early and how he responds.
Yep.
I don't expect him to be great out of the gate. But let's don't beat around the bush. Nebraska's football future, on and off the field, is dedicated to one guy, like it was to number 15.
Another 15.
Okay? We didn't run from it back then.
No.
Why are we hesitant to run from it now?
That's a great question.
And what would be
That's
the
a great
difference,
question.
Nick, if, let's say, and I was doing this, and it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's reality. What if one of the three that are there today, and they all got skin in the game because they're older and they've never been to a bowl game. Okay, this is their year. If they said the same thing about a kid that is 4 years younger than, I don't know, Ty Robinson, Gifford, or Scott.
You know what that would do? And to an extent, even if Matt Rule said it, I would be even more excited. Because if you have veteran-type players, captain-like guys, or the leader of your program saying something like that, then you know there is, people have already seen doses of this, but you know there's substance to it. But you bring up the more intriguing part of this entire exercise of if this actually was said. And I 100% agree with you. Most times I'd say, I don't love that they're putting that on a freshman, but for a guy that has been brought up the way that he has, and you hit the nail on the head. This is why he came to Nebraska. It's the impact of the rest of the team. It's the impact of special teams. It's the impact of the defense. It's the impact of the guys around him that he's going to be throwing the football to. It's the impact of the guys that are going to be protecting him, the guys he's going to be handing the ball off to.
Oh, so how about it's just a vibe?
It is.
When
you've got a dude at quarterback,
yeah,
when you've got a dude at absolutely, it's different. There's
Tony Meade in high school. If he was better, I think I would have felt better about my senior year at Urbandale.
Well, for a defense, it's already going to be good. Not at Urbandale. I don't know. Is Urbandale traditionally a good defensive team?
Maybe I've lost touch with the high school program,
but
post 90.
I've always believed in this because even as a player coming up in youth football and in high school football, when you have, whether it's a great quarterback or an offense that all of a sudden has an ability to be explosive, you're on that other side of the football. You cannot wait to get the ball back in their hands. You cannot wait. If people were watching the Chasing 3 episode and Tony White just during the spring game, the emphasis of ripping the ball out. I know sometimes that's chance, sometimes it's luck, but the ultimate ability of knowing not only did we get off the field, good on us, but we're turning the ball back over to a guy that is get out your popcorn. This is going to be a lot of fun. It does. I 100% believe in that is a big part that I don't know. And that's why I'm glad you brought that part up. I don't know if that gets as much conversation as much as maybe just how it will elevate the quarterback position and how it will elevate guys like Thomas Fidone, guys like Jalen Lloyd, guys like even the transfers with Banks and Nayor. This conversation, if this pans out, needs to be, because you brought this up about Tommy Frazier last week when we were talking about Terrell Farley and asking that question of when did it change? When there's a guy, you're not BSing, because look, there's probably a lot of guys when Dylan got here, some of the guys that didn't know him were probably looking to punch holes and like, okay, is this kid really that good? I want to see it. You know, everybody, especially when you're older and you've played the college game, you're going to be a little bit more skeptical. But when you're like, damn, this guy's different. This guy, yeah, I see it now. I think there was a lot of that with Tommy Frazier. Again, I'm not saying this is going to be said, but if they were any of the four people that represent Nebraska today were to say that, I would be that much more excited than I already am. And I'm pretty damn excited about Dylan Raiola. Because you can't fake that.
Well, Nebraska made an investment in the family. Dad, son, maybe another son, daughter. They've made a huge investment in the Raiolas, and they need it to work. And if it does, there's so many tentacles of his success to the team and what it means elsewhere. I mean, think about the recruiting angle.
Absolutely.
You know, the problem that Nebraska has right now, when you're just out there selling sunshine and you don't have success and you haven't been to a bowl game since 2016, is how do you get people interested in Nebraska? They don't have a connection in Nebraska.
Peer recruiting.
Well,
I mean, somebody that you believe in.
Well, but a little bit. But they got to be interested for something else, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It can't be money.
It's finally got to be wins.
So how do you get that person really interested in Nebraska, mutually interested in Nebraska? That's a problem right now. And when it comes to peer recruiting, and you have somebody who is well-known and is good at the craft and is a star, stars attract. I mean, that's a human appeal. We are attracted to fame, celebrity. Whether you want to not admit it or not, it's true. I mean, that's same way in recruiting in football. Kids can be attracted to fame and celebrity. Somebody that's got the cojones to back up the results, that's got some cachet, and you want to win. You want to be around people that are winners. And that's the Tommy Frazier effect that lasted, a few years after he was gone. But it changes the trajectory, the perception, and the potential. It allows you to dream. So all of this heaped on a freshman who they haven't even turned the scoreboard on, I'm okay, because there have been nothing along the way that you've said, you've made an investment in the family. And you are all in on the son doing big things. And so far, so good.
Yeah.
But now it's going to get tougher. And then you learn, how do you adjust? The real Dylan Raiola will show up in the next 2 months. Because there will be things that will be hard for him that he's never encountered. Now, if I'm completely wrong on this, watch out. But I think that there will be struggles along the way. And then the sign of how good he can be will be how he adjusts to not always having success.
And I'll use this example because this relates to the last time a true freshman started. And in my previous radio show, I got a lot of pushback of, you are blindly supporting Adrian Martinez. You need to finally realize that he's not as good as you're making him out to be. I always felt, and it was very refreshing because I know you've talked about this before, and I've heard other guys talk about this here too, of the lack of support that there was for Adrian. Yeah, there were mistakes that Adrian made on his own, but the commitment in the time that he was here to making sure that his development is coming along because of what you're supporting him with lacked. But the one thing that always got me excited about the future with Adrian Martinez, and this is why I bring this up, because of you bringing up adversity early, which I also hope, because it's amazing what you learn from those types of players, high competitive players that have a good amount of skill set and are adjusting to college football as a true freshman on how they respond. There were times, Colorado game was a great example, his very first start of, you're getting down 14-0. He made some mistakes, but damn, he bounced back right away. And all of a sudden you're seeing moments throughout the season of a mistake here and there, but having that, to use a baseball reference, having that last pitch mindset of you don't let it affect the next at bat, or you don't let it affect the next 3 innings of the game. There was something with that with Adrian that more than just the numbers that he put out as a true freshman in his physical ability, it was his mentality, the approach that had me most excited. I watch Dylan on already knowing it's a major spotlight. He's seen everywhere, College World Series, Nebraska basketball games. People come up to him, doesn't faze him. The way that he handles himself and his presence, which is obviously a lot bigger than even Adrian's was, that I don't, and maybe I should, maybe this is where I'm naive. I don't worry about it as much. I think it's very important for him to go through the adversity, but I also feel like he can handle that. But how he handles it, you're right, that'll shape the rest of this season. But that's an area when I remember back with Adrian where I think it's different now is I think Matt Rule and this coaching staff have looked at that part of surrounding Dylan for not just this year, but years to come too. And that's a big difference. And that's why, again, another reason I'm excited about how you handle that.
Okay, so part of this conversation is if you make a commitment to a player that could be a game changer, you got to support him, whether it be around him or personally, because your ass is on the line as well.
Absolutely, it is.
If 15 fails, Matt Rule probably fails. So if you're going to go all in, you got to make sure you're ready to go all in and you have all of the tools necessary to make sure that this is a success. And if it's not a success and you can go, you know what, it just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
But we exhausted everything to make sure we had success.
Yes.
Then you could say, okay, Nebraska had Adrian. They didn't help Adrian. And Adrian couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
And Dylan can't help himself. As you can see how they built around him. So lessons learned, yeah. That's a good point. All right, we'll talk some USC football and Nebraska football for the first time today, coming up in the next hour. Brandon Vogel from counterread.com will join us. I got a good question on the now couple of hours before Matt Rule speaks about Nebraska and the Big Ten. We'll pose to Brandon. But we'll talk USC top of the hour after the break on 1620 The Zone. Hey, we had a little problem in Chicago yesterday. Not with either the North Siders or the South Siders. By the way, the White Sox are god awful.
This just in.
If you know history, the 62 New York Mets were god awful. The Chicago White Sox are 27-76. They've lost 9 in a row. At the same point in 1962, that team was 26-77, and they're one of the worst teams ever.
You know, they're only 29 and a half games out of the wild card.
Nicky Lopez, come home. Come home, Nicky.
Good. I'm still bitter over 05.
So North and South Side had a bad day yesterday, but it paled in comparison to what happened on the expressway in Chicago.
Uh-oh. Something happened to Caleb Williams?
No, I think you'd hear about that.
Was Dave Matthews' tour bus involved again?
We had a dong on the side.
Oh.
The Wienermobile crashed.
Oh, yes.
On the Tri-State Tollway near Oak Brook.
Oh, no.
Yes, Mike Neville asked me about this.
I mean, that's a big deal. When the Wienermobile goes down and it's involved in a crash, that's a big deal. But before you're wondering, because I know you're going to ask on the stream, the hot doggers are safe. It tipped over.
Did tip over.
That seems like a prank.
It does.
I pushed
I feel like
the Wienermobile
there's some
over.
product placement there.
Yeah. But everybody knows now that everybody is safe.
Could be a vasectomy ad.
And as I found out, we were doing a promotion probably 5-6 years ago. There is more than one Wienermobile.
Yes, there are. Yes. I didn't know that.
You can have multiple wieners.
Yep.
And they have like located throughout the country.
Yeah, they got a wiener fleet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Total Recall for dudes.
I thought it was like Santa Claus. There's only one.
Only one.
But
now.
apparently there's multiple Santa Clauses that go everywhere, that can be everywhere at every time. Just like the Wienermobile. The Wienermobile could crash in Chicago, but later that night it's making an appearance in Elmhurst, New York.
Well, did you guys grow up with the Pancake Man? When the Pancake Man would be at your school or your school function, I always thought there was one Pancake Man. Then I realized there's a lot of Pancake Men.
Yeah. Pancake Man is a fraud.
Yep.
Pancake Man presents himself as a lone wolf.
Yeah.
Nope. Pancake Man is part of a lot of Pancake Men.
Yep. Like, wait, how is he going to be at the Millard JCs, but then he's going to be at the Norfolk VFW within an hour of itself? How's that possible?
Can you imagine if you were involved in an accident with a Wienermobile, that when you call your agent, like, I got to call State Farm, and how do you explain to him? So your Volvo was hit by a hot dog shaped Wienermobile.
A phallus.
Come on now.
Stop the penis party.
It's a 1970s sheepdog. Just like a Dumb and Dumber. So you could be, because the Wienermobile itself doesn't look like the most modern body type, although the wheels and rims look kind of more modern. So I don't even know how you describe it.
Car.
The car. Yeah.
I'm going to say a person.
Yeah. No, the car.
Got cleared up.
The car itself.
They got Ozempic for that now.
It looks like it's still kind of an older model as far as what the wiener itself resides on top of. So
that's what she said.
I hope somebody turned on the radio just then when you said that. Like,
Context.
Context is everything, especially when
what's going on in Indy
when discussing the wiener that crashed.
Get back to talking about Rule.
Oh, we will, and he will be talking. Actually, he's going a little later.
Rule doesn't have a dong on the side.
Do we know what time this happened?
Why are you avoiding the question?
Oh, it was just after 11 a.m. Perfect. That wasn't a question. That was a statement you made, by the way. Rule doesn't have a dog on the side. I just want to know what time this happened, and it was just after 11 a.m., so it was lunchtime. So I do think that this was product placement.
When your dong is on the side of the road, that's not good.
No. There's a song about that, by the way. Anybody familiar with King Missile?
Yes.
It's called Detachable Penis?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lovely track. Actually, it's a really good song.
Yeah.
Sure it is.
Like Mr. Potato Head.
It's interesting. Yeah.
To say the least.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's where a guy just had probably a really, really bad dream and decided to write a song about it.
I hope it was a dream.
Well, that would be good.
There was a lady called Bobbit.
Yep. A few years later.
She didn't have a dream.
Wasn't detachable.
She had reality. We will talk with our friend is USC in the new Big Ten a friend or foe?
They're a friend until August 1st. Then they become an official member. Or is it the 2nd? I think it's August 2nd. So it's next Friday.
Okay. So USC for today is a friend.
Yeah, they're still in the Pac-12.
Next week, when they interrupt our Big Ten commercial and insert South Central into
Yes.
it, they become a foe. Okay. We will talk with Ryan Abraham coming up next on 1620 The Zone. Oh, this is awesome. I mean, now you guys need to bring up the original video when they did at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, USC is in the Big Ten. What? Let's welcome in Ryan Abraham from USCFootball.com. Inside Troy on Twitter. Ryan, welcome to the Big Ten time zone.
Thank you very much. Yeah, a little 7 a.m. here on the West Coast, and it's great. You know, just hearing Tony Petiti talk, and I was like paying attention. Like, I need to pay attention to this. This is very strange.
Okay, so to a lot of us that have been around for a long time, that have spent time out in Los Angeles, and when Nebraska and USC have dabbled a little bit with some home and home, and USC has been Pac-10, Pac-12. What is the general on your boards, the people you interact with, friends? Now USC is in the Big Ten. How is that going over in Los Angeles?
You know, when it first was announced, I guess, a little over 2 years ago, I thought more people would be on board just because they were really unhappy with the way the Pac-12 had kind of treated, one of its flagship programs, going back to the sanctions and the revenue splits and all that kind of stuff. But I think over time people started to embrace it more. But yeah, initially there was a lot more people opposed to it than I thought. There's a lot of traditionalists that would love to still be able to play Cal and Stanford every year. That's definitely one of the casualties that people will miss. But I don't think they're going to miss the leadership of the Pac-12. And it's a shame that the Pac-12 actually got pretty good last year, and then it all goes away. But I think USC's had their own internal problems now that there's probably less focus on joining the Big Ten. It's more of a the team's not doing very well, and now you're going to be in the Big Ten. It's going to be worse. So I think it was like kind of an initial wave of negativity. Then more people got on board, and now they're sort of just focused on, are they going to get this defense right? Are they going to get back to winning games and all that?
Okay, and that's a great place to go, Ryan, because you think about the excitement of getting Lincoln Riley, what he was able to do at Oklahoma, had him in college football playoff appearances. He comes over to USC. He brings Caleb Williams with him. I mean, the sky's the limit of what USC can do, and they have a good first season. You mentioned the defense, the things that have kind of plagued USC a little bit. Just Lincoln Riley from the time that he showed up to USC compared to where he is in Indianapolis today, how much has either the confidence or just the overall direction of the program, how much has that conversation shifted, if at all?
Yeah, I think it shifted some. I mean, some of the fan base didn't want an air raid type of offense to begin with. They didn't like it, like when Graham Harrell was running the offense with Clay Helton, and they're more of the student body, right? I know Nebraska's got some of the fans like that too, where you just want to run the ball and get to. And obviously, those days are probably gone in college football. But there's some people that weren't a big fan to begin with, and I think if you reversed his season, because they were really bad in Clay Helton's last year when he got fired, 4-8, and to go to 11 wins and win a Heisman, I think the expectations just went through the roof. If you put 2023 that year and then they built up to 11 wins, I think there would be a much different narrative. But he hasn't recruited at the same kind of level, and the recruiting game has changed. And I get that, and I think some of the fans get that. But there've been some kind of misses along the way where I was expecting more, especially after that first year. So for USC, a lot of the offseason wins have always been flashy, where you bring in this 5-star guy or whatever. And this was more of I think a kind of an infrastructure, much less flashy kind of offseason, where they hire a new defensive staff and you're expecting big things from them. And I guess it's something that the fan base isn't really used to, where it's more subtle improvements throughout the offseason. So we'll see if that, pays dividends and they're actually, able to play some pretty good defense. But it's definitely been a weird ride for the fans. And some of the shine is certainly, worn off with Lincoln Riley. So this year seems to be kind of a year we can kind of win people back. And, it's a great stage. You got a lot of great games on the schedule. And like you said, you're in the Big Ten now. So it's not going to be an easy task, but there's a great schedule ahead of you that there's opportunities to get a bunch of really good wins, and I think win more people over.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it was, for some, that long ago, up 14 against Utah in the Pac-12 championship game, ready to go to the playoff, to 6-0 last year, and then the levee breaks. But back to what you said, Ryan, because I think this is an interesting approach. USC has the ability to attract players. I mean, one of the best players is Bear Alexander. Got him out of the portal on the defensive side. But instead of a transfer player infusion this offseason, they had an infusion of new defensive coaches. How much will this new philosophy from the DC all the way down make an instant impact? Because that schedule out of the gate is not easy.
No, it's playing LSU to start in Vegas is not going to be like, oh, hey, good morning. Here we go. It's starting this new era of USC defense. But I think what we saw when you see a defensive, or not defensive, but any kind of coach that comes from the NFL almost exclusively going to college, there's usually this kind of, growing pains and trying to figure out the game where you don't have, only have 20 hours a week. You can't teach them a playbook that's 3 inches thick and all of that. But Denton Lynn did it for, coming from Baltimore and really turned around UCLA's defense in the first year. And I think that's where Lincoln Riley and the fans are really hoping that he can do something very similar at USC. I think they were ranked in the 90s or overall defense, and they were, up in the top 20 kind of thing. So that was a pretty quick and efficient turnaround. And I think for USC, the talent was there. I mean, they certainly underperformed defensively compared to the talent they had. They upgraded talent from 2022 to 2023. I didn't think the defense could get worse, and it actually did. So I think a lot of the issues and the shortcomings, to me, are pointing to the scheme side of things, and maybe even some of the prep, what you're doing in practice and all that. And I think Lincoln Riley has kind of got that this offseason. He was kind of defiant after year one about getting rid of Alex Grinch, and he gave us reasons in the media, and it made sense why he wanted the continuity, but it just didn't work. So I feel like he's all in now, and whatever Danton Lynn needs to succeed, if it's changing the way they practice, running more goal line, whatever they want to do to add some toughness, get better at tackling, it seems like they're buying into that. So there's a lot of optimism that they can do it, but it's not the flashy thing like adding a Bear Alexander. It's really like, you're fixing all the internal parts of the house, not the stuff on the outside. And they're hoping that's gonna work this year. They really need the defense to get better. And I think Danton Lynn and the staff they brought in, for him, some really experienced coaches, have a good chance of doing that.
Ron, I know Miller Moss is going to be there today. You think about the quarterback at USC, it's always such a prestigious spot, and some of the greats that have played there. And you mentioned, Lincoln Riley's first year, you get a Heisman Trophy out of Caleb Williams. You get a chance to see a little bit of Miller Moss last year and some good stuff there. Where do you think the big jump is now that it's his offense? What do you look for out of him now that he's got the keys completely?
Yeah, he's done a lot of the kind of intangibles as far as being a quarterback and a leader. I mean, he's just been a great voice on the team throughout his career, even when he was, he's been the backup most of it, and had still won a lot of people over in the locker room. And, he was a lead 11 guy. It wasn't like he's chopped liver, but people are looking at him compared to Caleb Williams. And, they're just thinking he's like, oh, he's just some 3-star recruit that wasn't ever going to amount to anything. But I think the expectations for him certainly increased. They played a really good defense in the bowl game against Louisville, and he threw 6 touchdown passes. You can't really, put a whole lot of stock in bowl games, but it was definitely something that got USC some offseason momentum that maybe the fan base wasn't expecting. They thought they'd lose the bowl game and move on and try to fix things. But seeing how he was able to perform, I don't think he needs to be Caleb Williams, but if you could have the offense take a small step back and then have the defense take a significant step forward, that should be, a couple more wins, I think, for you going in the regular season. And they have a really a good core group of wide receivers, 4 sophomores. It has to be the best, receiving class in the country. Just all of them have popped and have looked really good. And, I think Miller Moss, when he was in that bowl game, if you watch Caleb Williams, no one was more happy for Miller Moss than Caleb Williams was. And I think that kind of shows he's really won a lot of the people over. I think he has, the players and the coaches have a lot of confidence in him, and he'll run the offense sort of like the way it was designed, almost like where Caleb Williams could be a chef and just sort of like play by taste and feel it out and see what you want to do. Where I think Miller Moss is going to follow what the instructions were for the offense, where, this guy's running this route, throw to this guy if he's open, and go through progressions. He can do a little off-script stuff, but nowhere near as much as Caleb Williams. So we know Lincoln Riley's offense has been very effective. I think you're just going to see Miller Moss sort of follow what you're supposed to be doing, as opposed to going off script a little more than Caleb Williams who was amazing at doing that.
Hey, big picture, Ryan, what's the biggest challenge or two for USC in ingraining into the Big Ten, whether it be travel, playing in cold weather sites? I know, like, going to Corvallis and Pullman and Seattle on the Pac-12 schedule, it was, the weather conditions at times were not great. But all of the things that are going to come with being a West Coast school in a conference that is Midwest East, what do you think some of the main initial challenges for USC to learn and overcome will be?
I think mostly it's going to be about style of play. The schedule makers actually, didn't do anything. USC doesn't have anything crazy. They go out to Maryland, but there's no like back-to-back weeks. Their Friday game is in Los Angeles, and it's actually 8 p.m. local, which they're playing Rutgers. 11 p.m. Rutgers time. So that's probably not good for them. But I mean, I don't think anything's too terrible. They have a Seattle trip, which is, normally on their schedule. So the travel wise, they're used to going to Notre Dame. There's just kind of more of those trips along the way. So I think, the style of play and, the Pac-12 was really deep this last year, but I feel like in the Big Ten, it's a bigger conference now with 18 teams, but there's a lot of really good teams with like really passionate fan bases. And, there's this year they're sort of lucky where they're not playing maybe the two best rosters in the conference in Ohio State and Oregon, but you have a lot of teams that are like, look like they're getting better and, can do really good things. They play both teams that were in the national championship game last year. So to me, it's more about the kind of depth that you're going to play in the conference, different styles, teams you're not used to, playing in Nebraska, playing Minnesota, Wisconsin, Penn State. I mean, all those teams could beat you, or you could win all those games. I feel like that's sort of like the what you're going to have to get over, that each week there's going to be a team that has, fan bases that go back 100 years and want to beat the crap out of you. And, maybe it wasn't the same, Corvallis, they're intense, it's loud, but there's just a different feel for me in the Big Ten, along with the style of play being a little different. I think those are going to be the biggest adjustment.
Ryan, personally, and you've covered USC, the college football venues landscape. When this was announced, and now that it's closer and this is the season, what were the places that either you were most excited to see USC maybe have a little bit more of a prolonged, consistent scheduling with, or places that you're most excited to visit Big Ten-wise when it came to venues?
Yeah, I've been to a couple. So, I've been in Nebraska, and that was an amazing environment. Columbus back in 2008 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Barkley was back there, and I got to cover that one, and that was crazy. I think ESPN had some 3D thing going on, some new technology. I don't know, but that was cool. But their first game, at Michigan, going to the big house. I've never been there. I think that'd be cool. I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania. Going to Happy Valley would be awesome.
Yeah.
Penn State, Wisconsin, jump around. I think there's a lot of great places you could go. Iowa, they got the traditions there. But just, I think, when USC went to Texas a few years back and, seeing that packed stadium, I think you just have a lot of opportunities to see that throughout the Big Ten. But there's some big iconic ones I'd like to see, and, some I've already been to, which have been lucky. But, I think starting off with Michigan is probably a really good indoctrination into the Big Ten.
Brian, we appreciate it. Welcome to the Big Ten. We look forward to chatting along the way, and as you get used to us being 2 hours ahead of you. Great stuff at uscfootball.com. Enjoy the rest of the day at Media Days.
Thanks so much. Take care.
That's Ryan Abraham, uscfootball.com. So that's the 24/7 site?
Yeah.
uscfootball.com.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, maybe at another time we'll ask him how they got that site.
Yeah. They have to pay for that one. It was funny when he had responded to my text, he had to clarify. I think this is what a lot of our West Coast brethren now are going to be experiencing. He goes, 9 a.m. That's 7 o'clock Pacific, right? I said, yes, you are correct. I said, okay.
At 12:04 today, he will be in the Thunderdome. So Matt Rule is at the podium at Lucas Oil Stadium at 11:30.
Yep.
Then when he is done,
he's going to be whisked away.
He is. The Pat McAfee show just tweeted out that Rule will be at the Thunderdome.
Wow.
At 12:04. I'm looking up how far it is. Buy me a little time here.
He'll obviously have a car that will.
Hang on a bike.
You can get him on a scooter.
He'll be taking an Uber.
So will Matt Rule? Will he shed the suit coat? Will he cash it up? Maybe bust out the Disney cruise shirt that he had with the crown on. That would be kind of sweet too.
Well, he looks. He's wearing. I just seen pictures from Lucas Oil. He's in a bright blue suit. He looks so uncomfortable wearing a suit
because the Royals are good.
That's probably why he's looking forward to going to the Thunderdome, so he can shed the whole suit and
go all white beater.
Yeah, just be Matt Rule.
You got to go white beater if you're going to be.
Well, at least sleeveless. Yeah, the white beater is a little bit more form fitting, but you could go loose sleeveless like McAfee does too.
It's called John McClane.
It's more of like a pool shirt. something you might rock to the pool. You don't want to wear the actual sleeves or anything, but that's crazy. So if he's really going to be there, I mean, that does not give it, because the podium time is what, 15 minutes? Yeah, because then James Franklin comes out at 12:45, and they'll stick to that timetable. So he'll be off the stage by, well, our time. He'll be off stage by 11:45.
He can hop in the inflatable duck.
He'll come in hot. He'll be coming in hot then. I figured you were right. I figured he would be with one of the many Big Ten backdrops there, just doing a live feed there.
So
it's gonna be tough to pull off, though.
So it looks like it's about a 30-minute drive.
Oh, I don't know how it's gonna work. 12:04 is gonna be tough to pull off.
And he's got to be doing it remote because
there's no way.
Well, because he has like a side session.
Well,
at
that's why
12:15.
I was curious. You got the side session earlier, then you're on the podium at 12:30. It's not like usually, and you were just there last year. Not like usually once you're off the podium, you're like gone. So I don't know how that would work. That'll be remote.
That'd be a hell of a flex against the Big Ten. Is that
it would be.
Rule leaves the site
to
go be in person at McAfee's show?
I'm pretty sure David Braun would have loved to have done that last year. But.
Yeah. I think because I have a general feeling of where they do their show. Maybe it's not that far. All right.
Yeah.
But he is scheduled to be on McAfee at 12:04 today.
Nice.
And he's been on McAfee before, and it's actually really good.
Yeah.
Because two football guys talking football. I can't imagine he's in person.
There's no way.
That'd be a hell of a flex. The only Big Ten coach that started in the Lucas Oil and then left and came back.
Yeah. Like, hey, guys, I'll be right back.
But he gets it. You got to be selling, man. Always got to be selling.
Yep.
So that's something to look forward to. He will speak at 11:30. I should have asked Ryan, what do you think the perception of Nebraska is in the Big Ten right now? Right now, as we speak, July 24th, 9:21 Central Time. The perception of Nebraska in the Big Ten.
I think he said it now without actually saying Nebraska. He said there's a few teams on USC's schedule that are on the come. And so I translated that into Nebraska being one of those teams without him actually saying Nebraska. That'd be my guess. Is you look at who's in charge. There is a little bit of reputation now with what they did defensively and having those guys come back. And especially at USC, understanding Tony White, who was very much a part of that conversation, that I think there's a little bit of that reputation. So I would fit Nebraska into when he talked about some teams that are starting to figure it out, is my guess. Which, hey, it's better than teams that are posers. Remember, like Chad Lysko mentioned when he came back on the Iowa beat, and there was that famous Colin Cowherd, the fake ID club. They referred to Iowa as the fake ID club of a team that was taking advantage of a weak schedule, but when it came to playing anybody of substance, that they were going to fall short. You could be put into that. Yeah, when it comes down to it, this team is really, really weak. I push back. See, I'm a fan of, if you have an easy schedule, you don't apologize for it, and you win those games, good on you. I could care less what someone's calling you a fake contender, because I don't think anybody was referring to Iowa that year as, ooh, that's a national championship contender. I just said, hey, they took advantage of a weak schedule. I can apologize for that.
A couple of comments on the stream. Back to the story about the Wienermobile crashing in Chicago yesterday. Tiger Shark Diver says, I got more wieners than Oscar Mayer. Jim says, can Joey Chestnut eat the Wienermobile?
Saw that one.
What's Coach Rule's number one rule of what to put on a hot dog? Dorothy Lynch.
Yeah. Product placement.
Matt says, it's refreshing to hear hot dog from you guys. Glizzy just gets under my skin.
I'd never heard that till you said it a couple of weeks ago.
Glizzy was a big TikTok thing, and I'm not even on TikTok. I saw that. What was it? What were they saying for the hot dog eating contest? It was it gobbling on Glizzy?
I call it a grease missile.
I like that. Whoever said that about
Mayor Mike from Gretna.
Yeah, on the turn when you're getting around in, that you get a grease missile.
Yeah,
Love
there's a lot of Glizzy has become very popular.
Kids.
I would never refer to it as a glizzy.
Go to a ballpark on dime hot dog night and have a glizzy or two.
Why do they call it a glizzy? What? That didn't make sense.
A lot of things they don't do.
There's nothing about it. It doesn't even sound like you can't even.
By the way, Gary had a friend last night did the 9 and 9, succeeded.
Nice.
9 hot dogs.
Ooh.
Yeah.
9
At a
hot
baseball
dogs,
game.
9 hot dogs, 9 beers.
9 innings.
9 innings.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's isn't
minor league game in North Carolina.
That is the true 9 and 9 though, right? 9 beers, 9 hot dogs, 9 innings.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he did a beer. I have to
There's
check.
no way.
One of my old studio guys at IMG.
I don't know where it would come out, but it would come out.
I know where it would come out.
I think, but I'm wondering if I would have multiple things happening there, because that's we tried doing the 18 and 18 holes for a guy's bachelor party. We had so many fun things planned that night too. Half of the people who golfed didn't even make it out that night because many tried. I think one guy got as close to 15 in 18. We didn't see him for almost 24 hours, where we had to do our own wellness check on him, and we found him passed out on his kitchen floor with food next to him, but he was breathing.
Good.
Yeah.
Covered him up with a towel.
But there were
Went about
several
your day.
people that said, I can't go out tonight because they surpassed 12.
Oh. So the word glizzy has been around for a while. I'm reading from foodie.com.
Oh, okay.
The word glizzy has been around for a while, appearing in hip-hop lyrics from the early 2000s, generally in reference to guns.
Yeah, I didn't think it had any reference to hot dogs.
The trend of using it to refer to hot dogs seemingly started in D.C. and went viral in the early 2020s amidst another pandemic.
Wait, another one?
Another one?
I wasn't around back for the first one. Another pandemic-induced online creativity. Now there's even a New York hot dog chain called Glizzy's NYC. The word's journey from hip-hop to hot dog is an interesting look at how regional slang becomes mainstream and how proof that no one can never have too many ways to refer to a hot dog.
Now, that is true. That is absolutely true.
It's very poetic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not going to say that word.
No, I'll never
Go get a hot dog.
A dog.
Get that ketchup away from it. Doesn't belong anywhere near my hot dog.
Didn't they? Okay.
We need more hot dogs in sports.
Honest question here.
And your hot dog in a bowl. Remember how people would get on Junior for his hat backwards? Oh
yeah.
My God, it just changed the game.
Oh,
Kick him out of Cooperstown. How he
Pretty
would catch a ball in center field and he'd like swing down on the catch.
Yeah.
They go, oh, he's hot dogging it. We haven't heard that in a while. We need to bring back that phrase.
Junior was good. He could do whatever he wants.
So I got an honest question though about hot dogs and things that have been described. Now I remember back in
there goes Harburg.
I wasn't around. I know we're watching Michigan State, Nebraska, by the way, on the Big Ten
that's
Network.
the game they
which is
picked.
fantastic.
Wow.
Well, they're both going to be on display today.
Oh, there's an interception coming up here pretty quick. So
Yeah, there was one that already happened where it essentially served as a punt on 3rd and 19. Remember if you've ever seen old baseball games, black and white, and they're always saying red hots. Yeah, red hots. Yeah. Is that a type of a hot dog, or is that what they were? Okay, I didn't know if that's what they just called hot dogs back in the day.
There's a
nickel
brand
hot
called
dog.
Red Hots.
Oh, okay, I always want to know what the hell a red hot was, and I knew it was a hot dog. I didn't know if that's just what they referred to hot dogs as, because I thought maybe that was the Fairbury brand red hot dog before it was actually the Fairbury brand hot dog. Yeah, I've been peeking up at this game too. It's just.
Remember when they actually used to show classic games on
they
that?
were so bad.
There
they
were
were
some
so
offensive challenges there.
Well, they were very poor blocking on the perimeter in this game. So they tried to run outside zone. The 10 plays I've been watching here and remembering this game, they tried to run outside zone. Their perimeter blocking was so bad in this game. They got beat to the spot so many times by Michigan State. And then Harburg bailed in the pocket early a couple of times, where if he just would have waited like 2 seconds more, the receiver had come open, and it was not a difficult throw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we only knew back at the first Saturday in November. All right.
Saw Joshua Fleek's jet reverse too. Got him inside the 5.
What happened to him? What's he doing these days?
Probably in Lincoln somewhere. Just hanging out.
Brandon Vogel hanging out in his study about 10 minutes away. 1620 The Zone. It's a preview in Twisters. So a new movie called Trap is coming out. It looks like it's off the wall, but I'm going to watch. I'll make a prediction here, single-digit numbers, because that's what we talk about on July 24th. Jamari Butler will be a single-digit guy this year. There are other candidates out there, but I will put it on the board.
You can put it on the board.
Jamari Butler will be a single-digit guy.
No.
Will Dylan Raiola. And what would it take for a true freshman to be a single-digit guy? 951-1620.
Be a dude.
So the Rose Bowl yesterday announced that they do not want to be a semifinal. They'd like to be a quarterfinal because they want to play on January 1st.
Mm-hmm. The Rose Bowl
Fine with
it. They don't want modern college football to impact the tradition. It's the last tradition we have in college football.
Yeah. We used to have multiple bowl games on at the same time on New Year's.
I know that the sunset is very, very important. I would almost drive to Los Angeles or into Pasadena just to sit in an empty stadium and look at the sunset over the San Gabriels.
Oh, about the same. Got as far west as
I'm not going to
Elkhorn.
be super sarcastic. It is kind of cool. I mean, it's a different, you don't get that kind of sunset out at Lake Zorinsky here.
Speak for yourself.
I don't know. There've been some pretty sunsets.
But
Lake
I
Cunningham.
think people
Especially
are
with the
missing
Canada
the
smoke.
point about the Rose Bowl and their 4:00 kickoff. So they get the sunset and they get January 1. If you know, you know, the parade is huge.
Yeah.
They do not want to separate the parade from the game, and the parade is always January 1. Look at the years. Like when Nebraska played out there in the national championship game, it was so odd because it was separate.
Yeah.
And the times that it has been that way, when they've been the championship game and the parade is separate from the game, it's very, very odd. The parade, I would say the parade is greater. The importance of the parade is greater than the importance of the sunset.
To them,
the sunset.
Yeah. Did you go to the parade when you went?
Yeah.
I did not.
It was cold. It was like 8 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
But it was pretty cool. I don't know that I would do it again, but I
There have been
off the bucket
schools
list.
and dance academies from the state of Nebraska that have traditionally
but
are
they
part
don't,
of the
They
parade.
don't want to separate the game and the parade.
I get that.
If you know, you know. If you live in Pasadena and you do flowers for a living, you know the parade is huge.
Smells good.
And so they got to have the parade on January 1. It leads into the game.
Have you been to the Macy's Day Parade?
No.
I'm just curious on how it compares.
It doesn't smell as good.
I would only go if I was watching from somebody's penthouse.
Okay.
Or I was carrying a balloon.
Like Mr. Pitt?
Yes.
Woody Woodpecker?
Yes. Brandon Vogel, who maybe in his long, illustrious career, maybe has done many of those, including...
He's held Woody Woodpecker balloon?
Including eating a Snickers with a fork and knife.
Yes. That's a classy move.
Yeah. He's probably also never had, sticking with our Seinfeld thing and Mr. Pitt, probably never had a Hitler mustache.
Our stock will rise.
Fogues joins us next. All right, before we bring in our good friend from counterread.com, Brandon Vogel. So Rule is on McAfee today at 12:04. Yesterday when he landed in Indianapolis, he went to the Thunderdome and they recorded an appearance. McAfee referenced it yesterday on the show, and people thought that Rule was on yesterday, but he said we'll have him on tomorrow. So at 12:04, Rule's recorded appearance will be on McAfee. So he is on today. It's just recorded. Live, though, is Brandon Vogel. Good morning from your place of many leather-bound books.
Mm-hmm. Is there any kids books back there too? I mean, you live that life too.
I do, but they're not allowed to keep their books on my shelves. They've got their own shelf just in the other room. So
You wrote about it the other day, about preseason projections from the Cleveland Plain Dealer or whoever else is doing them. Surprised or not surprised that Nebraska is where they are at 8th? And then the second part of this is, what's the ceiling and the floor if you're projected 8th?
Not surprised by where Nebraska fell. That's kind of where they've been. I think if you started looking at things starting in January, I mean, just with the national title odds, Nebraska had the 8th best amongst the Big Ten. Now I think they're 7th best to win the Big Ten at most of the markets. So it's right there. I think it's kind of the consensus on Nebraska. Ceiling or floor. For Nebraska, I really think it's probably anywhere from 5 to 11. I think the top 4 in the league are probably pretty well established. Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan. And then after that, most of these places will have USC 5. I could see USC being that high. I could also see them falling a little bit lower first year in a new league. For Nebraska specifically, I mean, I would be surprised if the bottom dropped out and they were lower than 10, 11, but we've been surprised before, so I guess be careful what I say.
Is there a team that you would feel would have a little bit more of that wide range? You mentioned USC as high as possibly 5th, but I think as we experienced when we saw Nebraska enter in the Big Ten, there can be some lumps there that could fall back. Yeah. I'm trying to think of any of the teams that are picked to finish 12 through 18 and wondering if they have a high ceiling. I don't know. Is there a team that comes to mind where you think, boy, they could be as high as this, or they could fall back as far as this?
I mean, I do think Nebraska probably has one of the widest ranges of those teams. I mean, Illinois is a little bit of a mystery. I would say Wisconsin, which was one spot ahead of Nebraska in the Cleveland.com poll. They're a team that I have a tough time getting a beat on, I think, in the offseason, and I could see them, taking a year or two step forward under Fickell. That said, there were some surprising problems even for a year one for the Badgers, I thought, at least in my evaluation. So I think they've got a wide range. Minnesota is another team that people, the power ratings and the poll here, not very high on the Gophers going into 2024. I feel with PJ Fleck, that program's probably earned a little bit more respect than it's gotten. So that's a team that I could see from maybe that bottom third. That wouldn't surprise me at all to see it end up in the middle third.
Hey, does this have a chance? Oh, I should not say chance. The possibility with Dylan Raiola at quarterback, Matt Rule, Marcus Satterfield, Glenn Thomas, to be the best quarterback, head coach / position offensive coordinator combo since Zach Taylor and Bill Callahan? Or would you find another one between 06 and possibly 24?
That's probably I would say the high water mark if we're talking the past 20 years or so. I thought pretty highly of Tim Beck. I would say maybe the early stages when Beck took over as the OC. You had Taylor Martinez, which was. His career is probably a little bit undervalued at this point, in my opinion. I mean, we were all well aware of some of the holes in his game, and Nebraska just played in such a way then that it wasn't quite able to work around him as often as it needed to. I mean, everybody's got some holes in their game somewhere. But yeah, I think that's probably it when you look at the style of quarterback play and the level of teaching. I mean, Bill Callahan didn't work out at Nebraska, but nobody doubts his football knowledge or his ability as a coach. And I get some similar, well, definitely from Rule, but also the addition of Glenn Thomas. I think that's the real kind of like wild card that might push it to similar levels there.
I heard this being discussed yesterday at Big Ten Media Days. Ryan Day was talking about it a little bit as well with the helmet communication, how that impacts offense, what they're going to do with that. You brought up, and Gary asked about the personnel, but Glenn Thomas, if you think about his biggest impact in year one, now that doesn't necessarily have to be his biggest impact in the next few years, but in year one, just initially out of the gate, where do you think, the reason I bring up helmet technology, maybe that's part of it, but where do you see the biggest impact Glenn Thomas has right out of the gate?
Well, the NCAA changing its rule for a guy coming from the NFL certainly is a little boost there. He didn't have to go back to the old college try of doing things the old school way. I mean, I think his biggest impact is probably managing a young quarterback room. That said, I'm also in a more on the field piece of the equation. I'm interested to see what he adds to the passing game. I mean, that's Nebraska's quickest path upwards if we're to start at 8th in the conference preseason poll, its quickest path upwards is just a more efficient passing game, which will, I think, come a little bit naturally just due to talent. There's not a lot of, you'd be in the basement if you went down from where Nebraska was at broadly as a passing team a year ago. So some of that's going to be natural, but I think some of that will be what Thomas is able to add and putting ththose two minds together in Satterfield and Thomas, particularly when it comes to throwing the football.
Brandon Vogel from counterread.com joining us. Let's talk about running backs. Is our desire, non-football staff people, is our desire to have a number one running back different from E.J. Barthel and Matt Rule's desire to have a number one guy?
Probably. And I think that's the case for maybe most teams throughout the country. I think as, fans, observers, media members, basically non-coaches, to use your term, it's the best way. We're still used to just, people enjoy watching their team run the football because it usually means good things if you're able to do it well. And we're used to, unless you're younger than us, I guess, to put it another way, you're used to the running back being a key part of the offense. Anymore, having one guy, having one of the best running backs in the country, it's a luxury. But I don't think most coaches view it as a necessity. They want to have the depth. Rule kind of broke it down. Like they're looking for a guy to lead the team in carries. Yeah, but it's not going to be 25. It's going to be more like 15 a game. And then they want a guy below that and a guy below that. I mean, I think if you said you could have one back who will carry the ball 25 times and he'll rush for 1,400 yards, or you can have your three backs and split it out and do it that way, I think this staff and most football staffs would choose the three backs who maybe don't end up on the end of season or preseason All-America list.
And so one of the running backs, and I thought this was somewhat interesting listening to EJ Barthel talk about them. Dante Dowdell, I know the excitement a lot of us put on him when he first came to Nebraska and transferred. There was a belief that he was going to be the workhorse type guy. And then, he found out that there was still a big learning curve. I thought it was interesting, EJ Barthel talking about just his size, his stature, and everything that he looks the part of. But then you realize there's still a lot that he has to learn. Brandon, where are you on what Dante Dowdell can do in the running back room compared to where you were when he first committed to Nebraska?
Yeah, I think seeing the performance in the spring game was good. There wasn't a lot of chatter around him during spring football, which I think one thing we know about Rule at this point is if you're a transfer and like you become OOU, one of us to use their terminology, like he'll talk about you right away. We've seen it with Joel Banks this offseason. We saw it with Chief Borders last offseason. Like, yeah. So I think if you're not getting those types of comments, that's saying that yeah, there's still some learning curve here for a guy like Dowdell. The talent's there. I kind of view him as a wild card, one of the unknowables. Like, if he pops, hey, great. It's almost all upside, because I do think Nebraska has good depth in that room. So here's a guy who can maybe give you something that it's tough to put on paper. It still sticks out to me that just his usage at Oregon last year, why they decided not to redshirt him. I mean, they had three really good backs who were clearly their top three. You just don't see that very often, where it would have been real easy to keep that guy to 4 games. So it's a little bit curious. I don't know if that's good in that, hey, we think this guy has some real potential and you kind of waited for him to pop and maybe it just didn't happen, or if it was a sign of something else. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with him in Lincoln.
Question that you would like answered before Nebraska leaves Indianapolis, so it doesn't linger to next week when camp opens.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, the biggest news of the offseason has been the change in the defensive coaching staff with the switch in the secondary. So I think that's the biggest one, just getting an update there on how things have gone in the couple of weeks they had, and what they look like going into fall camp. I've said it before, but July's not making a change like that in July is not part of the plan. So it's kind of been the first thing that maybe didn't go to plan, I think, this offseason, an offseason of great optimism for Nebraska. So I'll be interested in Rule talking about that. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to be in Indianapolis. But if somebody wants to ask Dan Lanning about that redshirt question, I'd be happy to get an answer on that too.
Well, okay, so there is the 105 that is hanging over that looks like that's going to be. Nick and I were talking earlier. I mean, there's 2 programs talking today that have lived off the walk-on program, and that's Nebraska and Iowa. And I'll be curious, not the response of Rule, but the tone. Like, will he have disappointment? Will he have disgust about this rule, which has an impact on a program like Nebraska?
Yeah, it definitely does, and Iowa as well. I think so far, I think as we've seen this at other conference media days, and we saw a couple of people ask about it yesterday, like, it seems like coaches in particular kind of maybe got that number up from where it started, and they're willing to toe the line for now. I'm guessing that'll be the tone that we hear. It'll be like, yeah, we don't love 105, but that's where we're headed. So, and I think the next step for that is almost inevitably going to be, once it gets set in stone, is there's probably going to be legal challenges to it. I don't know if those will come from Nebraska or Iowa, but I think there will be. Just in doing a little bit of background talking to some people in that space, they have said that that's probably what's coming.
Great stuff. Appreciate it as always. Good stuff. I know there'll be more after today's talking portion for GBR. We look forward to it on counterread.com. Brandon, as always, thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
It's Brandon Vogel, counterread.com, where you can find all the information. Nebraska contingent is making their way through Lucas Oil, as I'm seeing from our brothers and sisters that are there. No, doesn't seem like any off-the-wall questions yet.
Not yet.
No theme, no slogan.
No sloganeering. No commenting on a tragedy, on how your team handled said tragedy in the day before it actually happened.
No Ben Scott going, hope is a dangerous thing. Hope can drive a man insane. But to dream the impossible dream.
What if someone did bust out and sing song?
They'd be the hero.
They would.
They would save media days.
Yes, they would.
All right. Good show, everybody. That was fun. We'll react to what is said over the course of today around Nebraska and Iowa and many more. Day 2 of the media days. Matt Rule at 11:30. Connor will carry that. We'll talk to Connor and Josh coming up next on the crossover. We'll talk to you all tomorrow at 6:20.